Good evening, everybody. I'm Aaron Gilchrist in Washington, and we are coming on the air with live coverage of the U.S. Army's 250th anniversary parade. Now, tonight's celebration is part of America 250. That's a bipartisan initiative that was created by Congress back in 2016 to celebrate the 250th anniversary of our nation. That will be next year. President Trump hosting the parade today, which will be a march through history, really, American history, and all the military campaigns that the U.S. Army has led the country through. It is set to feature 7,000 soldiers, hundreds of vehicles, dozens of military aircraft. This is going to be a display that really has not been seen in this country in any sort of way in decades. And it comes at a sensitive moment, we know, when the role of the U.S. military is under scrutiny. President Trump, we know, has deployed National Guard soldiers and Marines to Los Angeles. That's in response to protests against ICE enforcement and mass deportations. This also comes in a tense political climate. There is a manhunt right now as we speak underway for a suspect accused of shooting and killing Minnesota's former House Speaker and another Democratic lawmaker earlier today in that state. And then back here in the nation's capital, the parade is starting about 30 minutes early as we're coming on the air early as well. This was because apparently of the weather and the possibility of rain and thunderstorms here in the nation's capital. We're going to have it all covered for you, and joining me here for our coverage is Chief Justice and National Affairs Correspondent Kelly O'Donnell, who is a font of information, period. But in particular, as we think about what we're going to be seeing today, and really I think we can't ignore the political side of what's going on. Obviously, the Army was going to celebrate its 250th anniversary in some way or another, but the politics of the day really have attached themselves in a significant way to this moment.
It's so right. These are complex times, and even tonight, this is a celebration set against a very difficult backdrop. And the politics of the moment and very legitimate questions that are being asked about the role of the U.S. military, our service members being put in positions that are asking more of them than the Constitution intended. Citizens have a feeling about it. And it is also a summer night in Washington when people will want to have an opportunity to see some of the equipment of war, the tools of war that you typically would not have the opportunity to see, and to do that in person. And it's in some ways like an air show around the summer holidays. It's in some ways like a 4th of July parade. It's a mix of all of those things. So there are emotions that will stir patriotism. And then there are feelings about some of the decisions behind this, everything from the cost to the optics. And certainly you referenced the terrible situation in Minnesota. And we are now in a climate where political violence is not remote. It's not a generation ago. It happens too often. And right now, an active search for the suspected gunman in that. So we have a lot on our plate tonight, and we'll try to wade our way through it.
Yeah, to make sure we find the right balance here, knowing what's going on in the world, and at the same time recognizing the millions who have served in this country's army to over the course of 250 years. Obviously, a time where they want to be celebrating, and we want to celebrate our soldiers as well in this moment ahead of the 250th anniversary of the nation next year. I want to turn to Vaughn Hilliard now. He joins us near the reviewing stand where President Trump and other dignitaries will be watching this celebration. And Vaughn, I know you've been there for at least a few hours now as people have been gathering. I'm not sure if Vaughn can hear me, so we're going to wait for a second and go to the presentation that's coming from the America 250 team that is now showing us the nation's capital.
Forged in the fires of revolution, tested on today's front lines of freedom. Before there was a nation, there was the United States Army. From the hallowed ground of Yorktown's first stand to the unwavering readiness at Fort Bragg today, and onward to West Point's next generation of leaders. For 250 years, one force has stood ready, unshaken, unmatched, unbreakable. And today, the legacy rolls on. This is the United States Army's 250th Anniversary Parade.
All right, right, you saw a little bit of a presentation of what we can expect to witness through the course of the next several hours. Now some of the dignitaries, our military leaders, as well as some of our civilian leaders coming into the grandstand here, the reviewing stand, to watch the parade as it comes in.
And it's beautiful staging, as you can see, with the White House in the distance, and then obviously the colors of the Army. And no disrespect tonight to the other branches, but this is a uniquely Army anniversary. 1775, when the Continental Congress signed for the Army, and now here we are 250 years later celebrating this important event. And certainly our gratitude for service extends to all the other branches. I've got friends from the Naval Academy who will certainly be wanting to get their time. Here's the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, who, of course, served in the National Guard, an Army soldier in combat himself.
And this is also Flag Day. We have to mention the fact that this is Flag Day in our nation, which was something that started 2 years after the Army was founded. It is also, as we noted, the president's birthday, his 79th today. Vice President J.D. Vance and his family entering the reviewing stand here. I want to turn to Vaughn Hilliard, who is on the ground for us near the reviewing stand and has a bird's eye view of what's happening there. So, Vaughn, if you're able to hear me, set the scene for us from your perspective.
Right. This is a moment here where you're looking at this parade being held in the shadows of the Washington Monument. Of course, tomorrow will mark the 250th anniversary of George Washington being appointed the first formal commander-in-chief of the Revolutionary Army on June 15th, 1775. And in so many ways, you guys were talking about the politics of this moment. Overseas, in real time, there are questions about the extent to which the commander-in-chief, this one, President of the United States, who you're going to be seeing here momentarily, take to this viewing stage here, whether he will put U.S. servicemen and women out potentially on the front lines to defend Israel from Iranian aggression. The Iranians, just in the last hours, have threatened to strike U.S. air bases in the scenario that the U.S. were to continue to try to intercept missiles and airstrikes coming into Israel. But also domestically, we are watching these images out of Los Angeles. Hundreds of active Marines, as we speak right now, alongside thousands
and Vaughn, I'll interrupt you here just for a second, just to note that President Trump and First Lady
domestically by the president
and the First Lady are entering the reviewing stand here. I'm going to guess that Vaughn may not be able to hear me very well. Obviously, again, we're seeing the President and First Lady enter the reviewing stand here. You heard the ruffles and flourishes.
And the 21-gun salute.
And the 21-gun salute that often precedes the President entering. And we're going to pause here and listen in as this gets underway with some of our national imagery and sounds that we would typically see in a gathering like this. Again, the part of the 21-gun salute continuing here.
For many Americans, they never get to see this moment. If you are at Arlington National Cemetery or another hallowed military space, you might see some of this ceremony and pomp. All of it is connected to great history, and there's a real sense of reverence today on this lovely, not quite summer yet, but we're trying to get to summer in June.
If you've been in the D.C. area, you may have been to the Twilight Tattoo, something that happens at Fort Myer. We'll pause here for the national anthem coming up in a second.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming?
beautiful rendition of the national anthem, performed there by Staff Sergeant Caroline Nielsen of the Army Band, Pershing's Own, as we've come to know it.
No pressure there for her, and she did a beautiful job.
She really did. And we're going to now have a video presentation for folks who are watching this on some of the monitors that are there along the National Mall before we start to see the parade itself take off here. Our Ellison Barber has been on the ground on the National Mall for the better part of the day, and she's joining us now with the crowds that have gathered to watch this parade in Washington here. And Ellison, I'll ask you first just to talk to us about what you've seen as you've been here throughout the day with these people who've gathered.
Yeah, I mean, look, a lot of people gathered, huddled up around this area and much further down, waiting all day for this exact moment. You know, one thing that has been interesting, Aaron, is we have met so many families who have come here today. And we had at least 2 different young kids we'd seen. They weren't together at all, but they were there with their dad and also with their grandfather, both of whom had served. And these kids, both of them, one was, I believe he said he was 9, the other was 4. And both of those families separately talked to us about what this moment felt like for them, to be able to be here to share it with not just one generation, but a couple when in their particular families, multiple people had served. They said they saw this day really being about the service of the U.S. Army in particular and the years that have gone into it. One family that we met, he talked about how his son, his great-great-grandfather had served, they said, during the Revolutionary War, and they wanted him to be here today to get a perspective of how much things have changed from when this family member he never knew had served in the military up until now. And ultimately, that is what we're expecting to happen as this parade gets underway. The U.S. Army has said that it is going to cover the different eras of the U.S. military, from the Revolutionary War to the global war on terror, all the way up to modern times, and also looking ahead to the future. But as we've heard some of the different stories of people here today, they talked about how for them, and we actually see some of the references of the Revolutionary era service members coming through here, but this is what, for a lot of the families we spoke to, they talked about wanting to see this because they said it helps give their children context to what, in this one individual's case, their own family line was about. And they talked about how his great-great-great, I believe it was at least 3, maybe 4, had served in the Army at the time when George Washington was the president, and how for them they would have the opportunity, something this kid would have never had otherwise, to see what that looked like back in the day. And we see it as they progress through here. This is the start of the era of what would have been, what soldiers would have looked like and how they would have worn. We expect to see some of them coming at some point, I believe, on horses and even mules, but about what it was like during that time. And for a lot of the families we've spoken to here, there isn't really a lot of talk about the politics or even the bigger things going on, because they say that it really is for them about for their particular stories and how so many of them had many family members who had served in the military, and having an opportunity to show it to the people who are in their family who are much younger. And this one moment, I'm thinking of the kid that we spoke to earlier, who was just about 10 years old, 9 going on 10. This was what he was most excited to see, because he had an ancestor who had been a part of the U.S. Army during this time. And for him, this is new, to see and understand what it might have looked like a little bit back then, particularly in person, and to see the different drums, the different uniforms, the steps. And this was what they were really looking forward to. And one of the other people we spoke to got emotional as he talked about saying, you know, in so many ways he had served, and he was also here with a child.
And Ellison, I want to make sure we give our viewers an opportunity here to see. We've got a different camera angle on the parade as it's starting here. And so we can see the initial elements of the parade really taking off here. You see some Army soldiers carrying the colors of the United States and the Army, and behind them you can see a marching band.
And it is a march through time, because as Ellison was talking about, the old fife and drum corps, that takes us back to the Revolutionary period. And so people who are getting to see this, our viewers who are watching, those who are along the parade route on Constitution Avenue in Washington, D.C., are getting a sense of the continuity of the 250 years. These are ceremonial uniforms in some cases. There are the camos of desert wartime And you also get a sense of how generation by generation the Army has changed. Its mission, of course, is different in different parts of the world, hence the desert camos for certain combat that reflected that as a way of blending in. And then, of course, the dress uniforms. All of this quite stirring to see if you're there in person, and a real way to say we all appreciate the service of members. 7,000 soldiers are here.
Participating across the parade today. And I think what we're seeing, and I'm going to hope that the video is sort of playing in a order that we were anticipating. This is what you saw a moment ago, I believe, was the U.S. Army Band, Pershing's own, as it's come to be known, founded in 1922, and was something that was created under the orders of General John Pershing, who commanded U.S. Expeditionary Forces in World War I, because he felt like the United States needed a band, like he had seen in Europe, to celebrate the work of its soldiers.
And that tradition has been so powerful, and generals and presidents have used it to stir the emotions, to bring patriotic music to the forefront, to give soldiers a chance to be a part of important rituals that are a part of civilian life. All of that very important. There's a combination of things happening here today, too. Some of the images you will see are from independent news cameras, and some of them are from a production company related to America 250. You see that in the upper left-hand corner. So there is a certain movie-making quality to today, and then there's a news event quality to what is happening today, and we're taking advantage of both of those perspectives.
We're going to sort of listen in at different moments throughout this presentation this evening. So we'll sort of stop down here for a second and let you hear a little bit of what people on the parade route are hearing as these soldiers work their way past the reviewing stand. Listen for a few minutes here.
The 3rd Infantry Regiment is the oldest active duty unit in the U.S. Army. Established back in 1784, the unit was dubbed the Old Guard by Major General Winfield Scott during a victory parade in Mexico City after the Mexican War. It is the U.S. Army's official ceremonial unit and presidential escort, conducting year-round tactical training to ensure the highest standards and utmost discipline of its soldiers. The unit routinely represents the U.S. Army and our nation in official ceremonies, major sporting events, and their own, the U.S. Army's own Twilight Tattoo. The Old Guard also maintains 24-hour vigil of the tomb of the unknown soldier, while also conducting funeral services honoring our fallen heroes in Arlington National Cemetery. The regiment's 50 campaign streamer stand is a testament to its long, faithful service to our nation. Ladies and gentlemen, the 3rd Infantry Regiment, the Old Guard. In 1775, the shot heard round the world at Lexington and Concord sparked a revolution, uniting 13 colonies and forging a continental army from farmers and frontiersmen. Against the odds, they turned the tide at Trenton and Saratoga, survived Valley Forge, and at Yorktown forced a British surrender, securing independence and giving birth to the United States of America.
This is the, you've been hearing some of the announcer talk here. This is the Army's fife and drum corps that we've talked about a little bit here. And obviously they're wearing those Revolution-era uniforms as they do when they perform around the D.C. area and in other places as well. This is really the Army's way of paying tribute to those original soldiers. The 1st Regiment that is now one that is recognized as the 3rd Infantry Regiment, the Old Guard. You just heard the announcer talking about here.
And these soldiers often participate in state visits. So when the White House and the president invites a leader, it's the highest level of diplomatic honor. And there's a big ceremony on the South Lawn. You always get the Fife and Drum Corps as part of that sort of dramatic flourish of American history.
And there are reenactors involved here. That is supposed to be General George Washington, obviously the first president of our nation and the leader of the Army during the Revolution, and followed by dragoons, which I've learned would have been the soldiers on horses who were General Washington's personal security entourage during the Revolutionary War, which lasted from 1775 to 1783.
Thank goodness for the Google, because I had to check that one myself. But it is so exciting to see things that go back and really remind us. And we will be living, as you said in the opening here, about how next year is the 250th anniversary of the nation. So we're sort of now building up to all of that. And this is dramatic. These are paratroopers.
The Army's Golden Knights, the parachute team that is world famous, in not great weather conditions today here in Washington.
Very challenging.
Still making this jump to really thrill a crowd. If you've been to an air show, you know how amazing it is to see some of these air performances and to see the Golden Knights parachute team jump in. These are our expert parachute jumpers, and they are soldiers, just to be clear.
They are soldiers. This is their duty.
These are all members of the Army, and this is what they do.
And they're putting on a show there, but that is spectacular. I was with the president earlier this week at Fort Bragg, and there was a demonstration there in anticipation of today's events, and 600 paratroopers put on their show, if I may use that description. We know it's serious business, but it is, when you are watching it, it is exciting. It is hard to not emit the big wow and have a smile across your face, because the skill that's involved there, there's real danger in that.
Absolutely.
And they do it, making it look effortless.
We are not focused on the jumpers anymore here, the skydivers anymore. Or actually, I think you can still see them on the screen a little bit here. Vaughn Hilliard on the ground. Vaughn, look up for me. Talk to me about what you're seeing there.
I'm looking up and watching them come down quickly here into the ellipse. This is impressive to watch here over the National Mall here in real time. You mentioned that, Kelly, over at Fort Bragg, when 600 paratroopers came down, this has been a moment here for this White House to effectively show off the current active forces that are still very much engaged. When we're talking about the U.S. military here today, you're talking about more than 1 million active National Guard and Reserve Army soldiers that are continuing to serve this country, and tens of thousands of them are in the Middle East. You're also looking at the last time that this military parade took place was in 1991 after the Gulf War, to honor and celebrate the troops that were returning here. And in many ways, when you're going up and down here, Constitution Avenue, a lot of these decades in the military interventions and in wars in which U.S. men and women had served in are very much intersecting. There's actually a new memorial that is going up, slated to open next year, right next to the Lincoln Memorial, to honor those that served in Desert Storm. And in many ways, I'm looking around the crowd here on the ground, and you're seeing a lot of young people, from teenagers to individuals in their 20s, that have lived through a new generation of war in the Middle East. More than 2 million U.S. men and women served in the Middle East, were deployed. And you look in the crowd, there's a great many of them who are here today, and this is what this moment is for the administration and why they wanted to have this event, to honor those U.S. Army men and women here who have served through generations past. And as you're watching these last of the paratroopers come down here, those in the stands there cheering them on, and they watching this, it's for folks to kind of have an idea. You have the White House, and then you've got there, over kind of where the camera appears to be coming from. That camera is near where the Washington Monument is at, and right where that viewing stage and where the president is at. So the president would actually be looking behind him. That is where everybody is dropping there. There's been quite a perimeter here over the last days in terms of security to make sure that those that were attending this event and this parade were here safely and securely. There are a lot of question marks about whether this is going to take place today or not. Guys, there was a thunderstorm 24 hours ago here in the area, and the weather had the similar forecast, and I know that some of the plans have had to be called off, but the paratroopers was a big moment here, and something for everybody in Washington to watch with great pride as the U.S. Army, the Golden Knights, the last of them just came down here and finished their effort here on the evening.
What view they had, those soldiers who practice these drills and do these jumps, prepared to do it anywhere in the world, and as they were floating down, to be able to see the White House and the ellipse and to know the president is there, probably a great thrill for them and for their families.
For sure. As we continue to watch, I think what you just saw go by on the screen here, some soldiers in period dress on horses. I believe we are beginning the Civil War era of this presentation, of this parade. In the late 1800s, mid 1800s, say 1861 to 65. I want to turn to historian Douglas Brinkley now. He's been watching along with us. He's written numerous books on American history, including the World War II Memorial, A Grateful Nation Remembers. He's written about our Army over the years as well. Douglas, I know you've been watching here. I want to just get your impressions on the day and on this 250th anniversary of our nation's Army.
Well, it's the opening salvo, really, of America 250. One could maybe add to that on April 19th was the anniversary of Lexington and Concord in Massachusetts. And both of those communities did a great celebration. But this is like starting to remind us that it's going to be a long year of ceremonies about America 250. I think we have to keep in mind, which you mentioned, Flag Day, a couple years after the Declaration of Independence, but we started adopting the American flag, and that's also a day to reckon with. And, of course, the fact that it's President Trump's birthday, this confluence of Flag Day, to Army 250, America 250, has made this a controversial event in some ways because we have a deep divide in our country. You know, George Orwell used to constantly talk about these kind of military parades as being about the social atmosphere of America. What does it say about our times today? And clearly for President Trump, he wants to show that he is first and foremost on the side of the U.S. Army, and he's often been at battles with them in his first administration. And so today's a day that he's been dreaming of since he saw the Bastille parade in 2017 in France. They're done around the world like this, but it's unusual in the United States. We usually do them after victory, in Europe or, after World War II or the Gulf War in 1991. But Trump, I think, can claim America 250, Army 250, his birthday, and make it into a calendar date and get a lot of coverage for it.
I do want to point out for our viewers that we seem to be moving pretty quickly here through the eras of the U.S. Army.
Time flies, as they say.
It does, especially on Constitution Avenue here in Washington. We're now in the World War I era, looking at some of the vehicles that were used by the Army in that time period. A touring car, a staff car, I believe is what you're looking at there as we see some soldiers in period uniforms as well.
And as we say in Washington, a point of personal privilege. My grandfather, Peter O'Donnell, served in World War I and was honored with the Purple Heart there. So that one tugs at my heart to see those uniforms from that era.
And I believe these are members of the 42nd Infantry Division, which was at the time during World War I composed of many National Guard units that came together to go overseas to fight in the war effort, serving alongside the French in some of the more famous battles that we've heard of from World War I. I did have the opportunity to go to the Meuse-Argonne Cemetery a couple of years ago, where one of the major battles involving U.S. soldiers happened. Was able to look out over what is still untouched field.
And that is where my grandfather served, so that really touches me.
Yeah,
it was the Great War until we had a Second World War, and then they became enumerated. But important history. And it is true that when President Trump was in France, I was on that trip with him, as Douglas was referencing, when they honored the 100th anniversary of the end of the First World War. That pageantry, done as the French can do it, certainly inspired President Trump, and it has been a part of his desire to see this kind of day happen in the United States, even though it has not been our tradition, except as Douglas indicated, when a war concludes, having that kind of ticker tape moment. This is something different. And it is certainly taking us through history, and it's also challenging some of our current thoughts about the place of the military in American life.
Absolutely. I believe we have Lieutenant General Steph Twitty with us in this moment. He is an NBC News military analyst, a former deputy commander for U.S. European Command. He is retired after 36 years of service, multiple combat tours in Iraq, Afghanistan, Kuwait. I could go on and on, General, about the work that you've done in the United States Army over the years and the accolades and medals that you've been presented in that time. I do want to first give you, though, an opportunity as you watch what's happening here in the nation's capital to celebrate the 250th anniversary of the United States Army. Your thoughts, your feelings and impressions in this moment.
Yeah, it's good to be with you, and especially good with my buddy there, Kelly. And so,
yes,
a couple of points I want to make here.
Back in the day.
Yeah, back in the day.
I was embedded with
then.
Colonel Twitty. That's the key here with the 3rd Infantry Division about 20 years ago. He kept me safe and took good care of me. So I'm very happy to see you, sir.
Great to see you as well. And oh, by the way, I served for 40 years, not 36, but that's okay. Who's counting?
Pardon.
Yes.
Yeah. So a couple of points I want to make
Short
here.
timer.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, what's unique about this force that you see in here, these 7,000, obviously, they represent 1 million soldiers that are in our United States Army today. And after 9/11, we closed our installations, we closed our bases, our posts, and so forth. And we sort of lost that connection with the American people because we're behind gates, we're behind brick walls and so forth. So the public rarely gets to see their military. So what's great about this opportunity here is the American people now connecting with their military, which is an important thing. We talk about protecting the Constitution. We're talking about all the time protecting America. Well, you got to sort of know who's protecting you. And I'm glad that we're doing this today. I'm glad we're showcasing these soldiers. And by the way, I was part of the first Gulf War, Desert Storm. And I came home to a great parade in our nation's capital and also New York, 8,000 soldiers. And I got to tell you, after 40 years of service, I remember those times like it was yesterday. I cherish it. And the other thing, what was so unique, we had the Americans coming out in the streets. Although we were marching, they were hugging on us, kissing on us, giving us flowers, candy, you name it. Of course, times are different now when we have gates up along the parade route, but that's okay. Well, we got to change with the times. I'm just happy that the American people are able to see the oldest nations in the state. All of it talking about it. The Army was founded before our nation was founded. And if it wasn't for this powerful, capable force we're seeing walking by today, we may have not have had a United States of America. So I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful to have served. I'm so grateful for our soldiers that are marching today. I'm grateful for all our veterans, whether they're Navy, you name it, all the services. We have 6 services. I'm grateful for those that serve. One last thing. A lot of people don't know this. Less than 1% of our nation serve. Now that is powerful. This is an all-volunteer force. There's no draft. No one is twisting any arms or hands or anything like this. These soldiers raised their hands to serve their nation. And so you're seeing America's best here on display.
And General Twitty, I think we're having a little bit of trouble with your audio, so we'll just sort of talk a little bit over what we're watching here. And I'll note that Kelly, you tell me if you remember differently. I don't think those tanks were there in front of the grandstand at the beginning of this, so they've been moved into place.
No, actually, I was there on the street yesterday when they brought them in.
Yeah.
And we should mention that there's some controversy in Washington, D.C. about the weight of the tanks. So they have placed metal in various corners and intersections to try to protect the streets from the significant weight of those tanks. But when
they've also put sort of rubber on the tank.
Yes, they've added the rubber
tracks
to it, and it is quite something to see a tank rolling. And General Twitty, who again I have my great personal thanks for his time and care when I was embedded with the 3rd Infantry Division 20 years ago, he really speaks to the issue of this is also a moment that President Trump thinks could inspire future enlistment and desire to participate in the Army, because we are an all volunteer force. Conscription ended in the Vietnam era. And so it is a chance to say thank you. And as the general also said, many Americans don't have a chance to see in person. If you don't live near a base, if you're not in the capital city like this, you may not have much opportunity. And this is a day to take all of this in, to acknowledge their service, to be reminded of all the enduring ideals. And, you know, we're also setting it in the current moment as well.
Absolutely. This is yet another one of the Army bands. I can't see exactly which one it is. I know there are more than 80 Army bands in the United States Army. They have their own music college in Virginia Beach. And so many of those bands are going to be performing throughout this parade today. Let's listen in a little bit to see exactly where we are arrow-wise with the now, wow, tanks that are rolling down the street here. And Kelly noted the fact, I mean, this is something we just don't see in this country. If you see a tank, it's in a museum or it's on a base and put in a position where it's more of an object that would be in a museum. Almost never do you see something like this on the street.
And these are Sherman tanks, and there are several varieties. And so if you hear me say Army vehicle, that's because I need to check my notes to be sure which one. But that is a very formidable piece of military equipment. President Trump likes to say a lot that the United States has the best military equipment, and we are seeing examples of it through time, the different kinds of transportation, different types of warfare where some of these different vehicles were best suited. And it is, in some ways, it's daunting to see. When I was on Constitution last evening and the tank rolled by, I mean, I'm not very tall, but boy, is it consequential in size and in weight, and you can hear it rumbling. And it is really exciting to see. And at times, those who have questions about this, who are concerned about the imagery of not wanting to look like the military has taken over civilian life, that's not the intention here, of course. This is more in the vein of the air shows and the patriotic celebrations and exposing the public to this part of military life. And you see, we've been trying to keep up with the vehicles as they come by to be able to identify them for you. The one in the foreground here is the high-speed tractor. I think was made by a company that made agricultural equipment at the time in the 1940s, and one that became used to move heavy machinery, heavy guns for the Army. Some of the other vehicles that we're seeing here would have been transport vehicles. They would have been involved in moving wounded soldiers in some cases. In other cases, they would have been vehicles designed to tow tanks that may have been damaged and unable to drive on the battlefield at different points in different conflicts. And many of these vehicles would have been used, as I said, in many different conflicts. So something that was presented in the days of World War I would have been seen again during World War II in some cases, in the Korean War, the Vietnam War as well. And they're sort of popping up along this parade route in different eras. And the veterans who are watching will know when we might get it wrong. Yeah. Feel free to send us a note. But no, our intention is to accurately depict these, and it really is a fascinating look through history. You and I both love history. Journalists tend to. Yeah. And this is a way to really be able to tap into it. It almost feels a bit like time travel with the way they have been able to create the eras of this parade to show people how a military service has changed and how the instruments of war, the uniforms of war have all evolved over time. And we saw a slate pop up for a second there that said Korean War, so safe to assume that at least from the grandstand perspective, the reviewing stand, we've now gotten to the Korean War. This is moving much faster, I think, than we anticipated. So is this the MASH period for us? Then I might reflect on that a bit. That, of course, was the great TV series that depicted the medical unit in Korea. I want to bring in Sergeant Major Lavaris Jackson. He is in D.C. from Texas, where he serves as the 34th Command Sergeant Major of the 1st Cavalry Division there in Texas. Sergeant Major Jackson, we appreciate you making some time for us today, wearing the signature hat of the Cavalry Division. I do want to, for folks who are using today as an opportunity to get to know something about the Army, talk to us first about your team, your unit, your division, and what you do in 2025.
Sir, thank you for having us. Thank you so much for this opportunity. But I'll talk about the 1st Cavalry Division. The 1st Cavalry Division was established in 1921. And as you know, we are a historical organization. The patch comes from the 1st General and also his wife, Miss Dorsey. And Miss Dorsey identified a way when they said, make a patch. She said, we're going to make this patch big, and we're going to put the horses in which we ride in it. And we're going to make this patch big for big people to do big things. And that's what the 1st Cavalry Division has done since 1921. We continue to do these great things and push for our country and do great and wonderful things. Being the largest division in the United States Army with 21,473 soldiers, 7 brigades, we are the front line, one of the strike divisions in the 3rd Armored Corps. And currently, we have multiple formations who just returned from Europe and Korea. And also, we have formations preparing to leave and go out at this time back to Europe.
We spoke to some soldiers who were here earlier this week preparing for the events today, and they were excited to be doing this, to be able to bring their craft, their part of the Army to Washington, to a national audience in this way. Can you talk a little bit about what it means for you to be taking part in this parade on this particular anniversary as we see more, I believe, Army helicopters above head working their way towards you? What does this mean to you?
Aaron, this means so much to me to have this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to bring together with my brothers and sisters in arms from around the world and allow our small portion of soldiers to come here, visit our capital, and also represent the totality of the Army, which is a part of America. I mean, our soldiers are so happy to have this opportunity to be this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. They're ecstatic. They're enjoying it. We have soldiers that come to the Capitol for the first time, and I'm telling you, we have come to the Capitol to visit and also understand that we are important. We are a part of our nation's history, and we will continue to be a part of our nation's history. And to show our American people that we are ready, and we are ready to do our nation's bidding. That's what's so important to me, and I have the opportunity to lead some of these soldiers in this parade.
All right, Sergeant Major Jackson, we appreciate your time today. We welcome you to the nation's capital, and thank you for your service, sir. Come back anytime to visit. Kelly?
Stunning to see the maneuvers that these helicopter pilots are able to do. And it is not, of course, a crystal clear sky. Sources have been telling me that some of the flyover elements are not flying today because of the weather. Real threat of thunderstorms. We've had a lot of rain. Expect more later. But it is terrific that some of those have gone forward, and you could see that. And I bet you could hear it very well from the parade route as well.
And I believe this is the 1st Cavalry Division band that we're watching here. We just heard from Sergeant Major Jackson there, Command Sergeant Major Jackson there a second ago from this same division, and now we're hearing the band come through the grandstand area as we get a look out at the crowds that have gathered there.
Yes.
Yeah, and we haven't been able to get that angle. If that shot's still around, guys, I think that's something that's worth talking about as well. I know we have Ellison Barber on the ground in the crowds there. And Ellison, given that we haven't been able to see much of the crowds, talk to us a little bit about your perspective on this and how people seem to be receiving what they're seeing there along the National Mall.
I mean, look, Aaron, people are excited, and I'll let you actually just come with us, and I'll introduce you to one of the families we were talking to. This is the Martin family. They're from Pennsylvania. We have Isabel here, who is 7. Her brother is 4.5. And we were talking to them a little earlier about what they have been looking forward to seeing most. Can I ask you again, Isabel, tell me what has been your favorite thing so far?
Seeing the tanks and being in one and also listening to the music.
Seeing the tanks, being in one end, and also listening to the music. They were saying both their parents are musicians, and so they were really excited to hear the plethora of military bands that are here today. What do you think? Have they waved back at you? They waved. It's good. Tell me from your perspective, you were talking about this earlier, but why was it important for you guys to be here and bring your kids with you to share this experience?
Well, we thought it was going to be, it's a once-in-a-lifetime event, really celebrating the 250th anniversary of the Army, and great to see so much of the military equipment together and see all the military bands together. And we just wanted to build a core memory with our kids. So we were really excited to come down here.
Are you still excited for fireworks? Yeah?
She might be in bed.
Oh, watch them on the TV because bedtimes are still important. We respect that. The Martin family, thank you guys so much. So, Kelly and Aaron, that's one of the things that's been really neat. We can turn this way and let you see some more of the crowd here. A lot of the people we've been speaking to, they're here with their kids. They have brought them because they say this is an opportunity for them to see things that kids really like, right? Tanks, trucks, music, helicopters. And for so many of the really youngest people, they've been so thrilled to be able to see all of this. And walk with me a little this way and you can just get a sense of the crowd. And you'll notice how many people are on shoulders. A lot of them are families. And they say they came here because, one, they felt like it would be a fun experience, maybe a core memory like that family said, or because they also were able to come with other generations in their family who had also served in the military. And they said being able to share that experience and show them all of this and talk about what they went through, or in some cases their grandparents went through, that it really created a special moment for them to see all of this. I gotta say, most of the kids we've talked to, they are really excited for the fireworks. That one family seems like they have established a plan to get out early because it is going to be a lot later. But for some of the other littlest people we've spoken to, they have said the trucks and the fireworks, that's what they're all here for. And they're really excited to see it finally get underway, despite a bit of rain and the heat. Yeah, it's great, right? Back to you
the
guys.
music is the big draw. It's wonderful to see some of this right now, Aaron. This appears to be the Vietnam era, and that is so notable because when so many soldiers came home from Vietnam, there was not a parade and there was not the kind of public adulation for their service. We've now moved on to the 90s with the Gulf War, but that's an important element of this as well.
You're absolutely right. And I think as we've talked to folks over the days leading up to this, they've noted that as well, that this is though controversial in some circles, this parade is, there are those who feel like they never got an opportunity to stand up in front of the American people and march in this way and to receive some affection from crowds that have gathered like we're seeing here today. And so an important moment in particular. Obviously, these are soldiers who are representing that era. Exactly. They're not soldiers who served, but...
And the Vietnam War Memorial in Washington is one of the most moving places to visit, and there were a lot of complicated emotions of that time, and to be able to honor their service with the distance of history and maybe a different view and appreciation of all the country has gone through since. That was a turbulent time. We're living in one now of a different type. It may be a source of comfort for those veterans from that era to see that they're included in this parade.
And as we've been stepping through the eras fairly quickly here, a little faster than I anticipated.
Yes, they've been picking up their step.
Yeah, I do want to sort of point out a few things about some of the aircraft that we've seen. And you may be thinking, well, we have an Air Force. Why are we seeing these aircraft in an Army function? Yes. The Army had its own Air Force, the Army Air Forces, before the Air Force was founded in the late 1940s.
Service, yes.
And so there were these bomber planes, the helicopters that we've seen today. They were part of the Army Air Forces and were flown by the Army and to some degree still function today inside the Army, although we have an Air Force with the fighter jets. The Navy has its fighter jets as well.
And again, just as we've evolved to a Space Force, taking some of the capabilities of the Air Force, it just sort of leapfrogs forward and expands to all the branches. Again, today's a celebration of Army. As you noted, the other branches are much younger. I'm sure that's a source of competition at times. But this is a chance to celebrate soldiers. And so all of them, whether they fly, whether they drive, whether they're in the trenches, so to speak, are all soldiers. And boy, that is quite a scene to be able to see the maneuvers down Constitution Avenue and to see tanks of that magnitude. I'm sure that is, oh, wow, look at that.
It is amazing to see. I think if we still have General Twitty with us, and I hope you're able to see what we're seeing here, General, as these tanks are coming through on the parade route here. It is, while amazing, and to see a soldier poking out of the tank, out of the lid there, waving with a smile on his face, a nice image for folks who are there along the parade route, General, but it is highly unusual to see this on an American street, and something that has generated some controversy. I am interested in your thoughts about the idea of showing off our military might in a way that some people think is too reminiscent of what has happened in other countries in modern times and in the past.
Yeah, I think the key here that folks need to understand, these soldiers, what the biggest difference is between authoritarian and us, these soldiers, again, these are volunteer soldiers. They come from the fabric of American society. So in other words, our people that are in the Army are your people, the American people. We're one. There's no separation between the American Army and the American people. These are your sons and daughters. And that's what makes this so key. And you don't have to worry about these soldiers turning their weapons on the American public. I can guarantee you this. You're dealing with a professional soldiers that understand American values, that understands the Constitution, and all they want to do is serve. They don't want to get involved in politics. They want to serve the nation. That's what they came in to do, that less than 1% of the nation. And oh, by the way, the tank that you're looking at is an M1 tank. It is the most deadliest tank, deadliest and sophisticated tank in the world. And Kelly, if you can remember, we had those tanks in Baghdad, and behind it was the M2 Bradley, named after Omar Bradley. And the tank is Abrams, named after World War II great General Creighton Abrams.
I do remember those well, sir. And when you talk about the importance of these soldiers not wanting to get involved in politics, is that an active concern in your mind? Our politics spill into so many parts of American life now. Do you think that there is any risk today of people perceiving these soldiers as being somehow a tool of the current political climate?
What I will tell you is these soldiers don't want to be involved in politics, and sometimes the lines get blurred, particularly when you're talking about our general officers. Obviously, it is our general officer corps that communicates more with the politicians sometimes. And the lines may get blurred occasionally there. But for the soldiers that are actually marching here and operating on the ground, they so far removed from the political piece of this. They're focused on a job. You gotta remember, we just came out of 20-something years of war, and we have all kind of conflicts around the globe now. And many folks do not know this. We have several forces. I won't name the number for OPSEC and the locations. We have several soldiers around the globe now that are in harm's way. And all these soldiers that you see marching here, they're in a parade now, but tomorrow they'll be back to training. And you heard the Sergeant Major talked about some of these soldiers will be deploying in days. So they don't have time to think about or be involved in politics. They're thinking about training for their mission, getting ready to deploy, making sure that their families are safe before deployment, and deploying just like our history of our Army and winning.
I do want to turn back to our historian here. Douglas Brinkley is with us. He's been watching along, and I am interested to get your perspective, the context you're able to provide on the optics of the moment. We obviously see soldiers marching here again, something that would be familiar to Americans in modern times if you live in a military community or near a base. But then we see that tank poking out here in the shot that's on the screen now. That is something that is less familiar. I'm interested in your perspective on this through the context of history.
Well, the problem with the tank, if you're just going to cut to that image of it, for an optical point of view, reminds one in Tiananmen Square with the great protest there and the lone dissident standing in front of the tank representing democracy. That's why we often don't do this. But what's exciting and what isn't part of the optics is the music. I mean, after World War I, it was General Pershing, great Blackjack Pershing, in the early 20s, that, he said we got to, they even called it, Pershing's Band, really, Pershing's Own. And we started using music regularly to keep the morale of the country and the forces up. It's kind of stunning, but during World War II, we had 500 Army bands in operation to keep soldiers' morale up. So this, if it was just people marching in tanks today, minus the musicians, you know, it'd be a different feel for the event. So I think you have to both see and listen to understand what today represents, and then reiterate what's been said. This is a great recruitment moment for anybody watching who wants to join the U.S. Army. Incredible career, incredible way to get educated. You know, I've written on U.S. Army Second Rangers, a book, what they did in World War II with Point de Hoc. My father was in the Korean War in the Army, and you know, the amount of service, and that's what we all have to pull together and say, look, generations, we're here and able to talk like we are right now because of the role Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force, Coast Guard, and the like have given us, gifted us. And the fact that it is a volunteer Army and that they're all doing their duty. I would blow back a little on there's no politics going on in the Army. It's unbelievable how many U.S. senators or Vice President Vance or cabinet officers or Congress people started their careers in the Army or Navy, Air Force, meaning it's actually been a springboard for military, you know, politics and military have been deeply intertwined. Look how many Army presidents we've had, from, you know, George Washington or William Henry Harrison, Andrew Jackson, Dwight Eisenhower. You know, Theodore Roosevelt insisted in the White House as being called the Colonel. There's been a clamor in the last decades for somebody like, you know, during the Gulf War era, for Colin Powell to run for president, or people now want maybe Admiral McRaven. We turn to our People's Army at times in politics too, because we might have a dysfunctional Washington, broken Washington, but by and large, the American public loves our armed forces. The people watching love the Army personnel participating in this parade, and we try to phase out that whole right-left polarization and just say, good for them, thank you, thank you, thank you. I think that's the heart and soul of what today's all about.
It really is a good point, I think, Douglas makes here. As I've spent time with members of the Army Field Band a couple of years ago, and you talk to these men and women who wear the uniform, who are professional musicians in many cases, and who are also soldiers, trained. They go through the same basic training. They are trained to fight, but they're also musicians, and they see themselves as ambassadors. They are proud to represent the United States Army, and they are excited to go out and meet the citizens and to perform for them and to give them an idea of how proud they are to represent Americans on stages around the world as performers, but also as soldiers.
And the music is a great way to stir the sense of patriotism that people feel, that's for sure. And we're now in the War on Terror era, which is accessible to all of us. This is not turning back and looking into dusty pages of history. This is the modern experience from 9/11 forward, and obviously there's a lot happening on the world stage right now with concern about Iran capturing nuclear capability, and of course they're in hostilities with Israel right now, and we have when General Twitty was talking about for operational security, not wanting to talk about where service members are around the world. There are clearly people who are fighting counterterrorism and so forth, who are deployed either in uniform or undercover around the world. So this is a very present-day application of military force.
I want to turn to Gregory Daddis, a history professor at San Diego State University. He also served in the U.S. Army for 26 years, I believe, is a vet of both Operations Desert Storm and Iraqi Freedom. The Gulf War era is represented in the parade here today. Professor, we appreciate you making some time for us today, and you're watching along with us here as we enter this period looking at the global war on terror. Hearing, I think,
rock and roll.
We should note that some of our bands do now have rock and roll sections in them. I think the Army Band is one of them. And so that kind of represents the music we're hearing here. But I do want to give you an opportunity to weigh in here on what we're seeing today and how this is occurring to you.
Well, I think this parade is showcasing that we should probably think about Hearts Barracuda as the new Army song. So.
Ann and Nancy Wilson love them.
That's right. Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate the opportunity. I think what we're seeing here clearly is a very long relationship with war that America has had throughout its history. And in many ways, I think our relationship with war has become part of our national identity. It's certainly had an impact on how we view key aspects of ourselves, to include definitions of citizenship. If we go back to the 1940s and the immediate aftermath of World War II and look at Army Day celebrations that President Truman was presiding over in 1946, he talked about the Army of Democracy, our Army of Democracy. And I think that message is incredibly important as we're watching the history of the United States Army unfold here along this parade ground, that Truman spoke about this Army of Democracy coming from every walk of life, of every faith, of every national descent. And I think that's something that we need to think about today, especially in our highly politicized moment right now, that leaders in the past, both political and military, saw the Army being strengthened by our diversity, being strengthened by people participating from every walk of life, as Truman mentioned in 1946. And I think that's an important part of us, of how we reflect upon this day in particular, but also our relationship with the United States Armed Forces. And especially in a moment where we are an all-volunteer force, that we should aspire to our armed forces being the best representation of our society that we can get to, by not just honoring service, but also having that armed force that we're celebrating here today and honoring be as representative of the nation as we can.
Thank you for offering your thoughts on this. We're going to ask you to hang with us if you can a little bit here as we watch again some of the tanks come through here, and you know, we in a moment of transparency, we have sort of cheat sheets of the tanks and what we were expecting to see here. They're a little out of order, and so I'm reluctant to attempt to identify a tank as it's on the screen and misidentify.
But clearly Barracuda is a key term with this heavy drum and bass beat. Just to give you a kind of, let's peel back the veil a bit more. So these soldiers who are here participating in the parade, it's not a glamorous visit to Washington, D.C. No. They are staying in government buildings. So, for example, the Department of Agriculture or the General Services Administration sort of bunking in government buildings.
Lovely office buildings,
yes,
not hotels.
So imagine how fun that is. And over the course of their stay here, they are eating MREs, meals ready to eat, which are incredibly caloric. Mm-hmm. When I was embedded with the 3rd Infantry Division and they provided meals ready to eat, I said, that's really for the 18-year-old guy who has a metabolism much different than mine, because that's like 10,000 calories. But they are kind of roughing it a little bit. That is certainly part of life for American soldiers. But just to give you a picture of the faces that you see, how they are experiencing their few days in Washington. They obviously came in over the last several days to get prepared for this and to do rehearsals and place equipment and do all of that.
And we're seeing now a mix of images of the tanks here, but also some of the Jeeps are hauling these large guns that are used in battle as well. And I think it's worth noting as well as we watch this that this is happening as other parts of the country are dealing with traumatic incidents that have happened over the last couple of days, and today in particular in Minnesota. We know that there is a manhunt underway at this hour in that state for a suspect who shot several lawmakers in Minnesota. You see his photo here, Vance Wolter, someone who's, as we understand, law enforcement is still looking for in the Minneapolis region after shooting a former State House Speaker, as well as her spouse and some other representatives of the state legislature there in Minnesota. And so that is something that we are keeping you aware of and keeping in mind as we see this parade happening here in the nation's capital on the 250th anniversary of the U.S. Army. Really an opportunity, as we should, to recognize the work that our soldiers have done through the centuries.
We thank them for their service. We're glad to see that they are being celebrated and people are having all kinds of different experiences, those who were able to attend in person and those who can watch from afar. But you're right to take a moment to go back to Minnesota. Very troubling events there today. Active search for the suspected gunman who was encountered by law enforcement at a home of one of the Minnesota lawmakers who are Democrats, state legislators. One couple died of their injuries, the other hospitalized through surgery, and the latest report we had is they're hopeful they will pull through, but very, very serious offenses here. And authorities found information in the vehicle that suggested this was a part of a wider attempt to cause political violence.
We've also seen a mixture of demonstrations in cities around the country, again, over the last several days and today as well. We noted in Los Angeles that there had been demonstrations that have occurred over the course of the last week, many of them anti-ICE action demonstrations. There were No Kings demonstrations being held around the country in different cities today as well. Those demonstrations really, communities coming together to make a statement to the Trump administration, to President Trump, about this event that we're watching here. From their perspective, one that was really the president taking advantage of an opportunity to show off this big, beautiful parade, as he called it, and to exercise his authority as commander-in-chief and to flex his muscle, really. I think some of these No Kings event organizers would say. At the same time, as we've been talking about, the event today here, from the perspective of the soldiers you see marching along Constitution Avenue here in Washington, is really an opportunity for them to stand up in front of the American people and to give us a glimpse of them and the work that they do and how seriously, in some of the, if you look at the faces here, how seriously they take their role in American society.
A service member having the opportunity to march past the commander-in-chief and the Secretary of Defense and several members of the cabinet, other dignitaries, the president's family there, that is a life moment for them. This is also given the highest designation, this event, in security terms in Washington. That's called a National Special Security Event. That means the Secret Service is in charge overall, with many agencies and departments participating, from the National Park Service and the Metropolitan Police Department of Washington. And there has been so much security put in place around the immediate area of the parade. We've seen the anti-scale fencing and concrete bollards, and traffic has been stopped in key locations, in part to allow for the parade, but in part to control traffic and crowds. And you alluded to the protests. Those, in many instances, are permitted protests where they get a designated area where they can exercise their First Amendment rights. There's Senator Joni Ernst of Iowa. She's a Republican, also served in the military at a high level, I think colonel, if I remember correctly. So you do have members of the cabinet who are on the dais as well. But from what we have seen, the protests have been peaceful, vocal, but peaceful in the D.C. area. And as you mentioned, the No Kings protest was replicated around the country. But Governor Walz, Tim Walz, Democrat of Minnesota, had asked that his citizens not participate while they have that active shooter investigation.
As we've seen the soldiers passing the review stand, we've seen the soldiers in tanks passing the review stand, saluting their commander-in-chief, President Trump there. Oftentimes, as we've caught glimpses of him, has been on his feet, saluting back to these soldiers that are walking by him. Kelly talks about the fact that this is really an incredible honor for those soldiers to be obviously they deal with their leadership at their respective bases, and they see high-ranking officials come through, but to be able to have a sort of pass and review, if you will,
Very much so.
in front of the commander-in-chief here is something that is special for them, and so absolutely they salute, and the president, again, as we said, has been saluting as well. Our Vaughn Hilliard is placed along the parade route here, not far from that reviewing stand, and Vaughn, this has been moving by at a fairly rapid clip. Talk to us about what you've been able to take note of from where you're standing.
Right. When you're looking around, you're seeing thousands of soldiers here, veterans, but also a great many in active service. And while watching this parade, I think it's important to know that there are the tens of thousands of U.S. servicemen and women, Army soldiers that are still serving overseas in Asia and Europe, the Middle East. There are thousands that are here in our presence. But watching some of this machinery, you're looking at strikers that are going by the parade route right now. We also saw the Abrams tank a few minutes ago, the Bradley fighting vehicle. I think it's important to note that these pieces of military equipment, well, they first came into use going back almost 40 years into the Gulf War, were used during Operation Enduring Freedom, are still very prevalent fighting forces for the U.S. military. There are no U.S. servicemen and women and personnel on the ground in Ukraine. And to say that because we just mentioned the strikers that you're watching right there on your screen right now pass by President Trump in real time, the Bradley fighting vehicle, the Abrams tank. These are all pieces of military vehicles that have been provided to Ukraine's military forces. While U.S. servicemen and women have not been put on the front lines themselves, the U.S. has continued to provide these key pieces of military equipment for them to sustain their fights and their defense against Russian forces. You saw Senator Joni Ernst on the screen a few minutes ago. You pointed her out. And I believe you saw Steve Witkoff, who was a special envoy for the president in this White House, who's been trying to negotiate a peace deal between Ukraine and Russia. And so in many ways, there is still a story to be told about the U.S. men and women that are not in Ukraine, but watching these key pieces of U.S. military equipment that were key to their past battles of the last 40 years are continuing to be on the front lines, though U.S. men and women are not the ones actually controlling them in real time.
An excellent point you make, Vaughn, as we continue to watch. You see Secretary Hegseth nodding along, Defense Secretary Hegseth nodding along as the music plays and the machines go by and the soldiers go by, waving. I'm still struck by this, the idea of these soldiers standing in the hatch and waving, just not something you would expect to see.
Well, they're
smiling.
safe today, so that's good. They don't have to have the defensive posture they would in a theater of war, and so they're taking in the sights themselves. And that's exciting. Again, they get to see their Secretary of Defense and their president and to put on a bit of a show for the crowd that's there in person. There's been a lot of emotional build up to this. They've done a lot of work to prepare for it. I'm not sure we've talked about the cost. The cost is quite staggering.
Indeed.
They estimate it could be up to $45 million. And when you think of what that includes, of course, it's locating all of the equipment, these heavy pieces of equipment to the to this part of the United States from bases around the country. It is the cost of moving the personnel, the cost of building that grand dais there, the reviewing stand, which of course has extensive bulletproof protection. Bullet resistant is what officials would prefer because you can never totally protect in this climate. And all of the fencing and the security systems and everything that's gone into this, very considerable cost, which is something that some lawmakers, frankly, in both parties had been concerned about at a time when budgets are always at issue. But the celebrations always have a price tag. You can't put this on for free, and so the president really wanted to go forward. And as you mentioned early on, this goes back several years when the legislative tools to bring about celebrating the 250th anniversary of the Army and the nation is built into the budget.
And you talk about that $45 million estimate that we've been able to report. A significant piece of that is potentially for damage that is done by rolling tanks through the nation's capital. You noted that we had a parade in '91 after Desert Storm, and there were no tanks. You saw, obviously, members of the armed forces marching through D.C., but the concern had been that the tracks on these tanks, these really heavy machines, would do damage to the roads, potentially damage to bridges as they come into the nation's capital and out of the nation's capital. There were steps taken to try to mitigate that. They put steel plates down in some places where they thought the tanks could damage roads during turns. And then they put some sort of rubber padding, if you will, on some of these tank tracks as well.
A mitigation strategy. But if you compare tanks to the SUVs that populate these streets on most days, the weight differential is enormous. And so it is the weight, it is the, obviously those tanks are meant to be able to tear up the ground wherever they are in a theater of war, whether it's uneven turf of some type, whatever it may be. So they aren't meant for civilian life, and that was one of the issues of cost.
And we'll see what happens after this is all said and done. We'll see what damage has been done. The Department of Transportation here in D.C., along with the Federal Highway Administration, have been trying to make sure they've figured out routes where they would see the least amount of damage, roads that could handle the weight of these tanks. And so we'll be looking at that in the days to come, obviously, as now the parade here moves into what they're calling the modern era, so much of which is filled with thinking about the technology that is employed as tools of war these days. Obviously, the tanks are ever present in the last century, but we're moving into a period of time where warfare is happening at the cyber level. It's happening with unmanned
aerial devices, drones,
yeah,
as they're known, how that has changed modern warfare and the skill set. The currently enlisted and serving and officers of the Army probably were raised on video games, and some of those skills come into play with some of the equipment that they now use today, very different than the World War I experience and so forth. But this is a chance for people to, again, see some of this equipment up close, get a sense of what it's like. And it is certainly, as Douglas Brinkley, our historian, mentioned earlier, this whole day is kind of a moving three-dimensional appeal for recruitment. And President Trump frequently says that recruitment numbers have been up. And that's something that he will certainly talk about, I'm sure, in the days to come after he assesses how this all went.
Absolutely. And as we watch these weapons go by, these are these high-powered rifles, if you will, that the Army uses. We do want to turn back to Ellison Barber, who's been in the crowd for us. And Ellison, I understand you are with a veteran there in the crowd now.
Yeah, so come with me and I'll introduce you guys. It's a father-son duo we met a little earlier. Michael, who served 24 years in the Air Force, his son Elliot, who is 10. We were talking to them earlier. Michael, you guys are from Ohio. You came here for this, but you were talking to me earlier about how, Memorial Day, a lot of people are out having parties. There are different days that already exist, but sometimes you talked about how this was important to you to show with your son because of your background. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, again, just we're in the best country in the world. And it's because of our soldiers and everything that's giving us lots of freedom.
I'm going to move this off just so I can make sure.
And it's just great to be here with the freedom and everything, with him and everything. And just share with everybody in the world that we're here for them.
One of the things I noticed earlier when we were talking about was it was emotional for you, because you've talked about in some ways this is a moment that you felt like to share with your son, but also that you couldn't forget how many people had lost their lives that you knew over the years. Why does seeing all this make you feel so emotional?
Well, just being here in this crowd with all the people similar thinking and a lot of veterans, just sharing and camaraderie. And I've talked to a couple people already. They see my shirt and stuff, and they just want to open up and talk, and it's great. And they're curious about where I served and stuff like that, what I've done. So I've talked to them about it and everything, and it's great to see people interested in what we've done.
And you feel like you've been able to find people who've had similar experiences to share some of those memories with each other and just feel seen, it sounds like you're saying.
Yes, for sure. Yes.
Elliot, let me ask you before you go what this has been like for you. There's a lot of dads out in this crowd, a lot of kids like you who their dad or their grandfather or their mom or their grandmother served. What has it been like for you getting to see all this and also maybe meeting other kids who also come from families like yours?
It's been good, and I like to spend time with my daddy.
What has been your favorite moment about today and spending time with your dad?
Just being here.
Yeah. More fun being with your dad and seeing this than any of the fireworks or stuff you were looking forward to the most earlier?
Yeah.
Thank you both. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. And we'll send it back to you. But that's one thing that is interesting. You know, when I talked to Elliot earlier, I was like, what are you most excited about? And he's like, probably the fireworks. I don't know. I like seeing tanks. It'll be cool to see some of this stuff. And now, after spending the day here, just him and his dad, he's talking about how it was so special for him because of the time he's gotten to spend with his father, who spent so many years serving here and overseas. Aaron,
what
Kelly.
What a Father's Day moment.
Incredible.
That
Thank
was
you for
lovely.
that, Allison. Yeah, and look at this. and I can tell you, there was a period in my life where I had BDUs and a pair of boots as a kid.
Yes.
Just sort of modeling the soldiers that I saw on TV. My grandfather was in the Army, and I would listen to his stories about his time serving. Oftentimes the stories were about the people he served with and the relationships that he built in that time, not so much about the work that he had done, which, you know, you don't necessarily want to share with a little kid, but in many ways it was inspirational. My best friend of 30 plus years is retired Army. He took it a little further. He obviously,
yes.
his BDUs meant something a little more to him in the course of his life. But this really is a special moment for families to really come together and share in the history of the military, the history of the United States in a way that touches so many people.
I'm also struck that Ellison has found families who have traveled here from states that are hours drives away. This is not just a D.C. event. This is people who made a family event of it. And as we talk about all of the current issues and we're kind of walking through some of the political things, these are families having a wonderful day together. And you really heard it in her exchange there, where a father is emotional about his service and a young boy says it's just so great to be with Dad.
General Twitty is with us still watching along here, and we've been talking about, we've now moved into the modern era of the United States Army, and we're in a moment going to, I believe, start to see some of what they're labeling the future of the United States Army. And I'd like to get your perspective on that, where we are now and what you see as the future, the potential for the U.S. Army. We've seen so many of the things that we use in everyday life technology-wise that are a result of the work of soldiers over the course of many, many, many decades. And the future, we don't know, or at least I don't know what's to come. You may have an idea of what's down the road for the Army.
Yes, I'm still closely tied to the Army, and I will tell you, we are taking a lot of lessons learned from the Russia-Ukraine war and the Iran-Israel war. And a couple of things that you should take note of. Number one, drone capability. You mentioned it. It is critical that we fill the forces, not just the U.S. Army, but across our services with the adequate drone capabilities. This is something that is cheap, but as you've seen on the battlefield, particularly in Ukraine, it could be deadly. And so we have to get our Army, as well as our other services, up to speed with additional drone capability. The second one, hypersonic weapons. You noted probably over in Ukraine, Russia's been using hypersonic weapons. I think China is outpacing the United States right now with hypersonic weapons, and we have to get our military forces filled with hypersonic weapons. The other one is AI. You heard a lot of talk about AI. Look, the intent is not to replace a human with AI. The intent is to aid the human. If the human can make a decision faster as a result of technology, then that's what we want in our military forces. So a hard push for AI as well. The other one is our logistics. All these vehicles that you see in here, of course, they have to run. And we have to be able to fuel these vehicles, feed our soldiers, and so forth. So we're looking at how do we reduce what we call tooth to tail. We have, and when you look at this, we have more logistics vehicles than we have combat vehicles. So how can we reverse that and have more combat vehicles than we have logistics vehicles? And so we're looking at some capabilities there, whether it be 3D printing, those type of things, where soldiers can actually, if their vehicles break down, they can actually build the piece of equipment on the battlefield slap it on their vehicles and keep rolling to do the things that they need to do there. Yeah.
General, that's extraordinary to hear you say that. That feels like Mission Impossible stuff.
Absolutely. So the technology is out there. The Army is working towards that technology. So I think we're going to see this as we continue to modernize the force. Another one is we spend a lot of money on batteries. And so how can we take stuff like solar power and all those vehicles that you see there all have batteries. And we spend a lot of money on generators. So how can we change the paradigm and go with solar technology? And the Army is looking at that. So there's several things. General Randy George there, a good friend of mine, he's the Chief of Staff of the Army. He's there on the viewing stand. He's pushing these initiatives hard, and the Army is moving out to modernize the force.
And General, I don't know if you can see what we're seeing here in front of the reviewing stand. The soldiers in the red caps here, I'm not familiar with who they might be.
That's the mighty 80s. Yeah, that's the mighty 82nd Airborne Division out of Fort Bragg, North Carolina. A historic division, one of our famed divisions. And as Kelly talked about, she was at Fort Bragg watching guys jump out of planes. That's probably the unit, or either our Special Forces guys that are housed there at Fort Bragg.
And I think you're right, General.
82nd.
I think I think the video that they're showing, I think some of that was shot while the president was there on Tuesday in anticipation of today and to having members of the 82nd with those very stunning red berets marching before the president again in the reviewing stand.
Yeah. Hey, one thing I want to say about the reviewing stand. If you take a look at the reviewing stand, we have civilian control of the military. Take note of where the civilians are sitting and where the generals, the top generals, are sitting. You got the civilians sitting in the front row, and you have our generals sitting in the second and third row. That's because there's civilian control of the military. Now, if you were to look at the same parade in places like North Korea, Russia, Iran, you would see all these generals front and center on the front row. That's the difference between our country. We realize and we take pride in having civilian control of the military. And our general officers report to the civilian control of the military and take orders from them.
Such an important distinction that separates the United States from other nations. And you see it very much in a three-dimensional way, as you just described it, General. Not just a concept, but you can see literally. The civilians are in front, the generals are behind.
As we are watching what we believe to be moving toward the end of this parade, we've been talking about what comes next, the future of the Army. I think we still have our historian, Douglas Brinkley, with us. And Douglas, as I look back over the course of the last hour and a half or so, moving from the Revolutionary War up into modern times, it seems to me that the Army has risen to the occasion when it comes to developing technology, advancing warfighting capability, being ready for and answering the call for what the future may demand. Is that your impression too, as you think about the Revolution, the Civil War, and you know, we had hot air balloons doing recon during the Civil War, and now we're able to send unmanned drones to do that?
Well, absolutely. There's nothing more important than technology and the modern U.S. Army. And, you know, one of the kind of quaint factors about today, I think, has been the hand-waving, though, of the soldiers. That way we're still looking for individual, you know, impressions. People can have a little bit of fun. Nobody there, some of these soldiers may not want to be in Washington today. They may rather be with their family or have the day off. But the President of the United States called it, and they're serving by being there and putting a very good face on it. Remember, we aren't jackbooters in America. I mean, these are our soldiers of democracy. In World War II, we won the war. When you really look at battles, often by improvisation. It's just not following orders from a colonel or a general. It's thinking when you're on the ground. And the U.S. Army on the technology has been promoting education. It's a great way to get education in the United States. Go to the Army, they'll pay a bill, a community college, state university, online courses. So in many ways, it's a training ground for other professions. Not everybody makes their career in the military, the U.S. Army, but they use it to springboard by getting getting themselves educated in the right way. And companies love to hire people that were in the Army or Navy. They feel that you've learned discipline, you've learned respect, civic responsibility. And my last real thought here is, it's fascinating, Donald Trump long has said, really since 2017, his hero was General Andrew Jackson, Battle of New Orleans, Old Hickory in the military. And then his other heroes he had claimed were Douglas MacArthur, George Patton. Yet Donald Trump himself, during his lifetime, has not favored Vietnam War. He did not favor George W. Bush's wars in the Middle East. And he seems to be a critic of sending our soldiers into harm's way, instead relying on technology and weaponry in backing, say, Ukraine over Russia, without that commitment of U.S. troops. The last big one in Washington, the big parade we've been talking about, 1991, the big point of that, according to George Herbert Walker Bush, is we put Vietnam behind us with a win. Well, Donald Trump rose because there was a feeling that we didn't get enough out of after 9/11 going into Iraq for that second Iraqi war. And that a lesson is, don't put American troops in harm's way unless absolutely necessary. History will mark today, though, with Donald Trump sending Marines into Los Angeles and other events that are going on. So there's a crisis in confidence for some Americans that, well, what are we doing? Let's, for God's sake, not over-politicize the armed forces. And today, I think we did not see that. This has just been a parade that's really a recruitment vehicle for the U.S. Army and a chance to say thank you, which is a good thing for the country.
Indeed, indeed. I do want to reference, I mentioned earlier that we'd seen some of the soldiers in the tanks saluting as they went by the reviewing stand. And apparently that has generated some questions from folks about why other soldiers are not saluting the president as they go by. General Twitty, if you're still with us, I'm hoping I can put this question to you about saluting
Yes.
and whether there's sort of a part of the protocol that allows for what we civilians typically think of as a salute not to happen, despite the fact that we see, obviously, the president there, again, on his feet, saluting soldiers.
Yeah, that's a great question. And so this is a parade, and what we really call this is a pass and review. And with a pass and review, the commander stands in front of what we call the guidon, that flag that you saw there. You saw it there coming by. That is the commander. See him saluting there? So the commander salutes. The other folks in the ranks, eyes left. You see how they turned left to be able to see the president? And so there you go right there. That's called eyes left. And so they review the president, but the commander salutes the president because he's in charge of the formation.
General Twitty, I had no expectation that I was going to throw you a curveball, so I appreciate the fact that you were able to help us all learn a little something here.
There are many viewers who are very excited to hear that explanation, because if you're not familiar with all of those procedures, you wonder why. Yeah. And clearly, the officer at the front is sort of saluting on behalf of the company. And all of those, yes, exactly. All of those traditions are so important. And of all days, they want to follow the specific and show the respect and all of that. So that's a very helpful insight, General. Thank you so much for that.
Now, as we keep an eye on what's happening here in Washington, we also do want to note that we are watching developments in other parts of the country, as this has been a very active week that we've seen in other cities around the nation. I want to bring in NBC's Jacob Soboroff, who's in Los Angeles for us. He is at a protest there. It has been a largely peaceful protest, I understand, Jacob, but it does appear that police are moving to clear the streets?
Yeah, Aaron, the LAPD and Mayor Karen Bass in particular says there's over 20,000 people right now in the streets of Los Angeles, and it has been largely a peaceful protest. You can see some of the streets are still open, but what I want to show you is California Highway Patrol on this bridge here, which is North Main Street, has come here and formed a line, and they're because the LAPD has issued a dispersal order for the area around the federal building where the National Guard and the Marines are positioned. They have pushed everyone off the bridge that overlooks the 101 freeway here. The Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, one bridge over at Los Angeles Street, did deploy what sounded like flashbang grenades and less than lethal munitions. They had horses out and pushed people off that bridge as well. But what I wanted, whoa, everybody's kind of running here. Whoa, we got the less than lethal up. Let's move. These things are dynamic situations, Aaron and Kelly. Everything's okay here for now. But what I wanted to show you is largely peaceful. So these lines sometimes turn into skirmishes, but I've not seen anyone throw bottles or rocks or anything like that at the police departments. In fact, I've seen a lot of this. I've seen a lot of peaceful protests, people angry about President Trump's policies, particularly about ICE being here in Los Angeles, the Border Patrol being in Los Angeles, the Department of Homeland Security being out on the streets of LA County, Ventura County, reportedly potentially San Bernardino and Orange County. And you can see people are out here with Mexican flags because they're proud of their heritage, American flags, some of them upside down, like the one that child is holding, a signal of distress, as you probably know. But again, with 20,000 people in the streets, it has been largely without incident. You can come take a look here at the 101 freeway. I'll show you guys what's happening. And people are standing out here. Are you guys part of a family? Yeah. You guys are all out here together? Yeah. So who's that to you?
My aunt.
That's your tia, yeah. That's your tia? Yeah. So this is his aunt. What? You don't have to tell me your name if you don't want, but do you want to tell me?
No.
Okay, so what are you guys out here protesting for?
Because it's not right what they're doing out here, man. We're Mexican. You know, this is our heritage, and we can't mess with that around here, you know? We have to fight and speak for ourselves, you know?
And are you born in the United States?
Yeah.
So you're an American, but you also consider yourself Mexican-American?
Yeah, of course I'm Mexican.
What's it like to see ICE out on the streets?
It's bad, man. What they're doing to our country is bad. What they're literally doing is bad, you know?
How old are you?
I'm 18.
18, so you in high school?
Yeah, I just graduated.
Congratulations. You know what you're doing after?
Yeah, I'm going to go to school.
All right, it's really nice to meet you. Be safe, okay?
You too.
Okay. And that's sort of the scene, guys. While on the bridges over there, and you can see, JB, why don't we show them? You got quite a bit, scores of vehicles from the California Highway Patrol, Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, Los Angeles Police Department, and behind them, the National Guard and the Marines on the federal building in the distance. The people over here in the Civic Center of Los Angeles have been protesting peacefully against the policies of the Trump administration, which is what this so-called No King's Day protest that's happening all throughout the United States was scheduled to be about. But here, obviously, it coincides with the actions of those federal agents that have been here in the largest county by population in America for over a week, guys.
And Jacob, is the sound of horns, is that related to the protest, that the protesters are encouraging the drivers, who are, of course, great in number in Los Angeles, to join in the protest? Is that what we're hearing?
You know that from your time as a correspondent here in our L.A. bureau, Kelly. This is the 101 freeway, and what you're hearing is the honking of passersby, commuters, who are looking up on this overpass up to my right that are waving flags, American, Mexican, diagonal with an American flag, combined, Guatemalan flags, Salvadoran flags. This looks like Los Angeles, a multicultural city of immigrants, guys.
All right, Jacob Soboroff for us in Los Angeles. Jacob, thank you. And we come back here to Washington, D.C., and the parade that's happening on Constitution Avenue here as we see more members of the United States Army on their 250th anniversary, birthday here, if you will, marching through the streets of D.C. I can't quite make out that flag there, but obviously another opportunity here to show off some of the larger, I think, in some cases, rifles that are used by our soldiers in battle. And joining me now is Colonel Marty Miners from the 101st Airborne Division, the Screaming Eagles. I can speak to the Army's focus on the future here, and we should note that we are also showing an image of a drone flying overhead as we come to you, Colonel. Tell us about the next iteration of the United States Army. Obviously, the 101st Airborne has been around for a long time, involved in conflicts dating all the way back to the beginning of the last century. Talk to us about the future.
Yes, sir, absolutely. So just like you said, the 101st Airborne has a long, rich history of defending America around the world. One of our teams today that you just saw was what we are calling the Army of 2030. So at the 101st Airborne, we have the most modern equipment, some of the most modern weapons, communication equipment, the drones you mentioned. We also have counter-drone technology, electronic warfare technology. So even though our history goes far back, we also are reaching far into the future. So we're really proud to be here, represent the 101st and the Army, and really show the world, what our soldiers do every day.
It's interesting. The drone there looks similar to the one I have. It's a really small one I have, but obviously what the Army is using, what the Army has developed is something that far exceeds the capabilities of something we might see at home. And this is something, again, I think it's interesting when you think about the development, Kelly, of the Army over the course of the last 250 years. So much of the technology, so much of the everyday things in our homes were developed by Army engineers and Army scientists and have been put into practical use. The internet.
And there are kids, you're a child at heart, but there are young kids along the parade route who see that drone and are probably excited to see that.
And probably know how to use it already.
Yes, exactly. And it obviously gives a capability that allows for protecting the lives of service members because they're unmanned, of course, a precision that is extraordinary, and many Americans are hearing about drone strikes when there are operations that are happening in the modern moment, and it gives people a sense of what does that look like. It is another chance to have a window into what is the modern military, and there's a real gee whiz factor to this as well, that you can see how agile they are, and in real life, so to speak, you're getting a chance to see this new kind of capability.
And Colonel Miners, you're still with us here. The notion of robotics becoming an increasingly useful tool in the Army is something that is becoming more and more real there, right?
Yes, sir, absolutely. I think you made a great point there that what these machines, these robots, these drones do is protect the lives of service members. So a drone can see things, farther than an infantry soldier with his binoculars. So he can simply launch that unmanned aerial system, spot, find, and in some cases kill the enemy before he's even in danger himself. In terms of robotics, we are also working on AI tools, computer signature protection, so we can't be found ourselves. There's really a lot of exciting work going on the future weapons, protection, and systems in the Army. And really what that does is make us more capable, more effective, and at the same time more safe.
All right, Colonel Miners, we appreciate you coming over to the camera and making some time to talk with us here about the 101st Airborne and other elements of the Army as well. Thank you, sir. As we continue to watch the trailing elements of the parade here, again, the salute to the president there on the reviewing stand and other leaders as well.
And I'm really struck by the comportment of some of these soldiers who are getting the chance to smile, to wave both hands. They're not in a posture of danger, and so they're getting to have some fun as they display the equipment that is a big part of their lives. It's a real different feeling because typically when we encounter service members, they are engaged in their duty and don't get to have the kind of fun we're seeing in certain cases here.
General Twitty, one thing that I did notice as one of the tanks was rolling by was, I believe, I saw a young woman pop out of the tank. And I think it's worth noting the role that women have played in our Army, and obviously, or maybe not obviously, but we know that women have been involved in the U.S. Army dating all the way back to the beginning, often as nurses and serving in other roles as well, but women have played a key role over the years and will continue to.
Yeah, I got to tell you, a good observation, and I was wondering whether or not you were going to pick up on that one. So great observation. And if you notice, in a tank, and traditionally we've held combat arms away from women in the military. We opened that up during the war on terror. And I got to tell you, our women out there did a fantastic job on the battlefield along with their male counterparts. And so you will find soldiers in foxholes in the infantry. We have several soldiers that have completed our U.S. Army Ranger School, which is a tough, rigorous school. We have soldiers throughout the infantry, the armor, the artillery, all the things that we reserve for males now. Have been opened up for women in combat, and that's a good thing. They have performed up to the task.
In so many spaces, I think about the sentinels that guard the tomb of the unknown soldier, and having met the first female sergeant of the guard a few years ago, Chelsea Porterfield. I think I apologize if I misremember that. But a young woman who led a team that, as all of our soldiers do, but that team takes their job so seriously, and there's so many elements of it that are exacting in order to pay tribute to fallen soldiers, people who gave their lives in service to this country. And women, obviously, as we know, that just have played such an incredible role over the years. And will continue to, as we see.
Often pilots, and I believe these are Black Hawks that are in a flyover now. Part of the bit of a pop quiz for us today as we're going. I hope people are patient with us.
I think you got it, though. It looks like
that's a Black Hawk.
Thank you, General. Great. I'm glad. I'd be very embarrassed if I messed it up in front of you.
And talk a little bit, General, if you can.
Go ahead. So that Black Hawk is not a fighter. It has the capability to fight, but it's more of a transport. And you can put 12 soldiers in that and carry them around on the battlefield. And instead of walking in, obviously this is a way to what we call air assault in. Most notably the commander that you just spoke to out of the 101st, they have the most Black Hawk helicopters in our Army today. And so those probably came out of the 101st.
Did you catch that little creature crawling by?
There was a moment of robot happening there that looked almost like a robotic dog. I'm a dog lover, so that's, of course, what I would impose on that. But look at that. That's part of the modern military you were talking about, General, of new capabilities, new tools. What would be the application for what we're seeing there?
Yes, so imagine this. We call this the mule. So imagine we used to put soldiers on the ground to move into somewhere in harm's way. And soldiers to go, for instance, defuse an improvised explosives device. Soldiers to put in buildings before we could actually clear the building. A soldier had to go in there. Now we can take these robots, let them disarm the IED, let the robot go into the room before we send the soldier in harm's way. So
and you said
again,
that's a mule, sir? Is that
yes.
the term? So when we were reading the notes, I literally thought you meant the type from working on the farm. Right. And we were saying to ourselves, why are there two mules? Not realizing it's the clever term for this robotic device.
Well, there were two mules in the parade earlier. They came out of the 1st Cavalry Division. If you notice, you saw the Horse Cavalry Regiment out of the 1st Cavalry Division. That unit also has two mules. That was part of that formation. So,
in addition to the
you're correct about that as well.
So the horsehair type and the robotic are both in today.
Absolutely.
Yes. So if you can imagine these robots, again, not to replace soldiers, but assist soldiers. Yes. And now we take the risk off the soldier and put it on the robot.
Makes a lot of sense, and it's a great way for force protection. I think I saw a Chinook in the air as well as part of the flyover.
You did, and I have to talk a little bit more about the robot here. I mean, obviously, we understand now the function of it in the Army. Ellison Barber in the crowd there for us. Ellison, there's a little bit of a cool factor, I would imagine, that goes with seeing those robots walk by, too.
Yeah, I mean, we're all looking up to see what's flying over us right now. We just saw, at least from this area, 4 Chinooks. Everybody in the crowd turns and kind of moves towards that direction, gets very excited when they see the various military helicopters flying over. In this case, it was the Chinooks. But look, one of the things that we have heard so much throughout today is we have seen some people with political-related signs, but in this section of the parade, in this crowd area in particular, most of the people that we have spoken to today are veterans, or they are family members of veterans or people who are currently actively serving. And we've heard again and again how they talked about how for them they feel like this day isn't something that is political. They say, look, a lot of times people are celebrating Memorial Day or even Veterans Day out with their own families on vacation, that they felt like this was something that was special just for them and where they could connect with other people and other families who have had similar experiences to them throughout the years, and also help younger people understand what maybe their dad did or their mom did before they were born. And we've heard so many stories of that today, of the excitement that families had here, saying we wanted to come because it's going to be fun, but also it gave us a moment to talk about what we have been through as parents or grandparents with the younger generation and sort of reflect on all of it today. That being said, I will tell you there was some signs where we saw anti-Trump signs, some signs where we saw positive Trump signs. We actually saw an interaction at one point between someone who had dressed up seemingly as a Donald Trump version in a clown wearing a sign that said, "I'm sorry," interacting with a very big fan of Donald Trump. And they just sort of joked around about their differing politics and then shifted to talking about what they were watching and the military. So in this particular area of the crowd, especially today, really has been about reflecting on the military, the Army in particular, of course, and how and where they have gotten here over the years and the different experiences that they have all had, and seeing it through the parade. Kelly, Aaron.
All right, Ellison, thank you. We should note that we've moved into the future portion of the parade here, and you just saw, we believe,
the West Point cadets.
United States Military Academy at West Point.
And certainly they represent the future officers, an elite group, a very difficult course of study, and then they spend years of service after that. So I believe they were members of the class of 2025, so recently graduated and will be serving around the world in leadership positions.
Now, if we're seeing this in the order that was indicated, these may be some newer soldiers, the initial entry training soldiers, if this is in the right order here. When I was growing up, we called that basic training, but I think that's the name has changed and some of the training has changed. But those are some of the young people who I believe are in that program now. Obviously, we saw the West Point band and cadets. We are seeing some of the military academies on display here at this point in the parade.
The Citadel is noted here. Also, the ROTC Reserve Officer Training Corps from Texas A&M. A part of this. So these,
and the Virginia Military Institute.
There you go, VMI.
As a Virginia boy, I have to note that.
And obviously, that is a very prestigious appointment for a young man or woman to be included in these military academies. They are exposed to a lot of important theory about warfare, understanding the technology, but really training great leadership skills. And it's a hard duty and a very impressive position to be in, and certainly they represent the future of leadership in the United States Army.
Absolutely. They will be the doers and thinkers of tomorrow, coming up with the new ideas, leading the way on all the technology that we've been talking about, developing and determining how our soldiers and other branches of the military, for that matter, will execute the work that they will be tasked with doing in the next generation of warfare. It's also, I think, as we talk about the future, this was an important part of the program. This was of the parade, I should say. Being able to see these young people travel in from their academies here in the summer months to march in this parade was a very important element, something they wanted to make sure was visible to the American people, not only to see the history of the Army, but to see what's coming, the future of the Army through the prism of these young people marching in this parade, representing what's to come from the military academies and the ROTC program that we mentioned.
And this is a be-all-you-can-be moment in terms of how you want to, the Army views this day as a way to reach out and to sort of share the brand that the Army is, to try to encourage enlistment, recruitment, interest in the officer corps. And it certainly is a case where the imagery associated with a day like this evokes emotions. It gives people who might be interested in this as a career a chance to see themselves in it. And we know that recruitment went through a strange period for a number of years, and certainly this is an ideal opportunity for the Army to try to show its best side and to be a place that might entice young people to want to participate.
We are approaching the top of the hour here, nearly 8 o'clock on the East Coast, as we get to the, I think, final images of the parade proper that we were anticipating here as these young people, again, representing the future, are where we are at this point in our military's history. And so we know that there are several elements to this parade that we expect to see, or elements to this celebration of the Army that we expect to see before the evening wraps up. A little bit ahead of schedule. We know we started about a half an hour early because there were concerns about the weather.
The weather has been threatening, and there's thunderstorms in the forecast, and obviously they wanted to try to get through this so that people would not. Certainly soldiers can manage when it's raining, but they wanted this to look good and to be appealing to families. And we expect that this next ceremony, and the reason these service members are paused, is that there is an expectation of a re-enlistment ceremony. So they've already served a term of commitment to the Army and are willing to raise their hand again and swear the oath. And that is a part of the video that we believe is playing. And this is quite an extraordinary moment if they are having an opportunity to choose to serve for an additional period at an event as unique as this one.
And I think there may be some new enlistees mixed into this group here as well, but largely re-enlistment, as we noted, about 250 people, we've been told, taking advantage of this opportunity to stop at the reviewing stand in front of their commander-in-chief, the President of the United States, as well as the other civilian leadership of the United States Army, the Secretary of Defense, Secretary of the Army, and some of the uniformed leadership as well there in the reviewing stand. A unique moment, to say the least. This is not the way that this happens for most of the people who enlist or re-enlist in the Army. But on this 250th birthday of the Army, it calls for a more special moment, and these young people are the ones who get to participate in it.
And this will be a part of the story of their service, whether they serve a period of 8 years or 30, the chance to say that they raised their hand and took the oath in front of the President of the United States on the 250th anniversary of the Army is certainly a very special experience. And obviously the story of their service and what brought them to their willingness to do it is notable. And there you see the President, who has been seated most of this day, now going to the lectern. That's known as the Blue Goose. It has the blue top to it and is quite a fortified lectern, as you might expect. We would imagine, as Commander-in-Chief, he might participate in some of this.
The video that's playing there is talking to, it looks like, some of the young soldiers who are in some of the service academies or in the U.S. Army's service academy, as well as the other institutions that we mentioned here, before we see this re-enlistment happen near the top of the hour here, as we obviously see the President there waiting to approach the lectern. And President Trump has spoken often about his pride in our U.S. military, a pride that is shared, I think, with a lot of Americans, with a lot of families around this country. He has celebrated the strength of the soldier, the strength of our military in many of the remarks that he's made about the work that they do over the course of this presidency and the presidency, his first presidency.
And as we know, he did not serve himself, but he did attend a military academy in high school. So he has had a little bit of that experience. And certainly the president is commander-in-chief now a second time with this second non-consecutive term. The oath that these service members take goes all the way back to 1789. So it is historic in itself. And of course, it is an oath to the Constitution, not the president, not a political leader, but to the Constitution.
And it was not, as you noted, in 1789, it wasn't originally a part of what soldiers did. Let's listen in here. I think the president's about to speak.
Mr. President, First Sergeant Norton, reporting for duty, sir. Ready to commence the ceremony as directed.
I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and that I will obey the orders of the President of the United States and the orders of the officers appointed over me according to regulations and the Uniform Code of Military Justice. So help me God. Congratulations. Congratulations. Welcome to the United States Army, and have a great life. Thank you very much. Have a great life. Thank you.
An incredibly special moment for these young people to have been able to re-enlist, enlist with the President of the United States administering the oath for them. We were noting that the oath was something that wasn't originally a part of our Army's history. George Washington actually wanted there to be an oath, was the first in the Army to take an oath to the United States and to the Constitution. And then that became a norm in our military over the course of the years, and we've been all able to witness that today in this re-enlistment ceremony. And as this is happening, we do want to here at the top of the hour take note of a lot of other news that is also going on around the country and around the world in this moment. The breaking news today was the overnight shooting in Minnesota of several people, two Minnesota state representatives, a former House Speaker and her spouse, as well as another representative and his spouse, all involved in a shooting here that resulted in the deaths of two people. The man you see on your screen here is the suspect for whom law enforcement is searching at this hour, Vance Bolter, accused of committing these crimes outside the Minneapolis area earlier today. Impersonating a police officer, going to these homes, gaining access, and then, according to police, shooting all four of the people that I just noted for you here. And so we are staying on top of that story, as we have been at NBC News throughout the day today. Of course, you can go to NBCnews.com for more details about that, as, again, that search, that manhunt continues, and people are being told to shelter in their homes and to not open the doors.
A horrific tragedy, and the vehicle that you saw there is believed to be the suspect's vehicle, and within that were some papers and lists of elected officials and potential targets, is how law enforcement is viewing that, and also included some flyers that had a notation about the No Kings protest. And so the suspect was confronted by local law enforcement, and he was unable to get back to his vehicle. That's why they have the vehicle, but not the suspect, as the manhunt continues.
And as we know, this video is playing at the parade grounds here. We do want to continue to talk about some of the other stories that we're following for for you today before we go back to the parade. We'll turn to Los Angeles now, where hundreds are out at a protest in that city. NBC's David Noriega is on the scene, where we just saw some police, David, responding to the crowds there. Talk us through what's happening right now.
Yeah, here, come with me. I'll show you. I'm on Temple and Main in downtown LA. The federal building where the Marines and National Guard are posted up is there. Here, what you see is the remnants of the peaceful protest of thousands of people that started at City Hall, which is that building right behind me, earlier today. And I'm going to speak a little slowly here, guys, because every time I take a breath in, it's labored because of the gas mask that I'm wearing, which I'm wearing because there, what you see is members of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department who have been deploying a number of chemical agents, tear gas, pepper spray, in addition to flashbang grenades. A number of mounted units just went to the line behind the tanks and the riot officers in the front there. I want to make something very clear. I cannot account for the actions of every protester out here today, of course. But I want to tell you that every single gathering that I've seen today has been 100% peaceful. I've seen people antagonizing Marines and National Guard troops with their words. That is the most aggressive action I've seen by a protester. The dramatic images you see behind me right now are not the result, as far as I've seen, as one person standing out here, are not the result of the actions of the protesters, but the result of the actions of the police, and specifically the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, who moved very aggressively to disperse this crowd and move them away from the federal building. The context for this, you guys, that's important to remember, is that the local law enforcement agencies that you see, the Sheriff's Department, the LAPD, the California Highway Patrol, which is about a block that way protecting the 101 freeway entrance and exits, are under the control of Democratic officials who are walking a tightrope between, on the one hand, showing their support for the protesters and their opposition to indiscriminate ICE raids in Southern California, and on the other hand, preventing the kind of riotous behavior that we saw last weekend. People setting Waymos on fire, dropping things off of highway overpasses onto police cars. They want to make sure that you and everybody else watching doesn't see anything that would justify the presence of National Guard troops and Marines in this city. From what I've seen in the last hour and a half, those law enforcement agencies and the officials that control them are erring dramatically on the side of preventing any kind of riotous behavior by not allowing groups of protesters to congregate on streets or at intersections for longer than a few minutes at a time, and using, I want to stress this, that's pepper spray right there. I don't know if you see the yellow flashbang. There are guys firing pepper balls. Okay, we need to move this way. I should stress also that they don't seem to be making a great effort to avoid hitting us, the press. Last point I'll make before I toss it back to you guys. It's important to note that we're dealing with different law enforcement agencies commanded by different people with different cultures. I saw LAPD on the other side of this building successfully disperse a crowd without deploying any kind of chemical agent, a single mounted officer, without deploying any kind of less lethal munition. This is the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. And they were, I want to stress this is what I've seen. I cannot account for the actions of any protester, but what I saw was LA Sheriff's Department very quick to use less lethal force, chemical agents. We're all getting alarm notices on our phones, probably about street closures here in downtown LA. I thought this was going to happen about 8 p.m. It started happening around 4 p.m. That's how quick the law enforcement agencies were to make sure that nobody could congregate outside that federal building where Marines and National Guard troops are posted up for more than a few minutes at a time. I think there were protesters out there for less than an hour. And I'm going to toss it back to you guys because I want to make sure we're positioned well here.
David, we'll give you an opportunity here.
But we'll be out here. We'll be out here.
I am going to ask you another question. I want to give you a chance to sort of move if you need to as you're doing that. And I'm curious, we heard from Jacob Soboroff a little bit earlier that a dispersal order had been given in the location where he was. I'm wondering if that is something that is universal across this area that's where protests have been happening. Have you heard a directive for people to go home? Is that potentially the alert that came to your phone here, and now these officers are taking action based on that?
Yes, I'm looking at it now. LAPD, avoid the area of Los Angeles and Temple Street. That's 1 block that way.
Okay.
Directly in front of the Federal Building. From what I've seen, I heard them declare an unlawful assembly on the other side of the Federal Building on Alameda,
Gotcha.
between Aliso and Los Angeles. And they just declared it on, between Aliso and Temple. And they just declared it on Los Angeles between Aliso and Temple, which is the other side of the complex of Federal Buildings. I'm 1 block over from that on Main. I haven't heard them declare an unlawful assembly here. I haven't seen a notice of them declaring an unlawful assembly here. But they are, as you can see at this intersection, using a number of less lethal tactics to disperse this crowd.
All right.
That's
David
what I can tell
Noriega.
you so far.
All right, David, we appreciate your reporting there in Los Angeles. And, of course, keep us apprised if things develop further where you are. We'll try to get back to you if we can here as the evening goes on. David, thank you.
A very stressful situation there, to be sure.
Yeah, there is also breaking news out of Israel at this hour that we are, of course, following for you. According to the Israeli Defense Force, a short while ago, missiles were launched from Iran toward Israel. Now, people have been instructed to enter a protected space, as they've been instructed to do previously this week. And this follows yesterday, where we saw Iran launch retaliatory strikes after Israel's massive attack targeting Iranian military officials. And this marks really a dramatic escalation in long-running tensions between these two countries. Of course, we will continue to watch developments there for you as the evening hours progress here. I do want to turn back to, if we can, our original programming here. Obviously,
Such
we're
an
watching.
eventful news day, though.
It is.
Such
It is.
an
And we have to make sure we're staying aware of what's going on in each of these
And
situations.
I'm sure people who are watching the parade want updates on what's been happening elsewhere, so I'm glad we were able to take a moment to bring them that.
Now, what you're seeing now is some performances here at the Army's 250th anniversary celebration. I'm hoping that's on the screen. Okay, great. I was worried that lightning was
Yes,
like, wait a
exactly.
minute.
It's in the forecast, but apparently that's on the screen.
Doesn't match what's out the window. I'm looking through here. But, yeah, that was on the screen there. We expect there to be several performances as a part of this celebration that's happening on the National Mall today for the Army's 250th birthday. I don't know who this is singing right now, and I probably should, but...
We were told there would be a surprise. I was also hoping we would be told who the surprise is, but this is, I'm sure, an important booking.
And if anyone in our control room has an idea, we'd love to hear it just for folks who are watching. But obviously, you see that they've set up a stage here in the middle of Constitution Avenue. There are soldiers gathered around the stage there. And this is really, obviously, they're enjoying it. This is really a treat for them. Perhaps as they're entitled to on a birthday.
Absolutely.
To be able to have this
party.
entertainment come here and celebrate this day with them. Say it again.
Warren Zeiders.
Zeiders, okay.
That's
Wallen.
what we're told.
Wallen Zeiders. I think it was Wallen.
Wallen?
Yeah.
Time for the Google.
Yeah.
Country music fans are very frustrated with us right
And I
now that we don't know
apologize.
that.
There it is on the screen. Warren Zeiders performing at the Army Parade.
Terrific.
And some other incredible musicians obviously involved here. We think there may be a second performance here. Again, part of the design here is that there's this treat for the members of the military. I do also think, again, it's worth noting that we are slightly ahead of schedule. We started half an hour early, and it seems like things have sort of settled into a space where we're getting close to being back on schedule with this gathering. And there are still some more treats to come for the soldiers who are gathered here in Washington from all over the country to take part in this celebration. There were concerns earlier in the day that there would be storms, that there would be rain and potentially thunderstorms.
So Ride the Lightning is what he's singing, and so that's a poetic moment because that's why we're seeing the lightning on the screens, and we might see it in the sky. So
we're hoping not, but it's a possibility. And honestly, it looks as though the rain is held off for the entire time,
which is very helpful for the crowds that are there, although it's also incredibly humid. Washington this time of year is. But there's great concern about real lightning because that is a threat to the safety of all of those who are gathered along the parade route. And I know part of the planning has been contemplating how do you disperse a crowd if there are concerns about lightning. But that makes it all make sense now that the Ride the Lightning is one of his hits.
And the concern about dispersing the crowd is something that the National Park Service, the National Park Police, D.C. Metropolitan Police Department here, they're experienced with having to move people quickly, large numbers of people quickly, if the weather takes a turn while they're out on the National Mall, which really has been secured in a way that is fairly unique, given that we are used to seeing large gatherings of people in D.C. and security being really amped up. For this event, Kelly, the security footprint is somewhat unique and large, right?
It's an enormous footprint, and it's a very hardened sort of perimeter of where the parade is taking place and where those who are attending would be able to sort of egress of where they could get in and around. So it's not a free, open national mall protecting, of course, the dignitaries and the service members who are participating in the parade itself. Beyond that, there are lots of gathering places, and there was sort of a family festival picnic kind of vibe through the day today.
And obliterated America's enemies.
And so we've talked about the fact that this evening, this parade, the celebration, has included several video montages, some of them historic in nature, talking about, for example, the battle at Yorktown, the ending of the Revolutionary War back in the 1700s, and other videos have been...
I think some of it's the commencement address the president gave at one of the service academies this year. Some of the greatest hits of those moments are playing as well. And his visit to Fort Bragg earlier this week.
Right. We know that we are going to be able to hear from some of the dignitaries who've gathered here, some of the leaders who've gathered here before this evening is complete, an opportunity for again, these soldiers who've gathered from all over the country, some 7,000, we believe, either marching or operating some of these vehicles that we've seen, they will get an opportunity to hear from some of their leaders, the folks who have gathered here along the parade route. Obviously, many of them fairly close to the fencing that's been placed there so they can see with their own eyes the soldiers as they've gone by. Others watching along the National Mall on those Jumbotron screens that we see pulled out so often for these big gatherings here in Washington.
That really expands the parade route in many ways so that people have a sense of what is happening. And part of why the organizers, which are a separate company, there's the Vice President of the United States, of course, a Marine
Well, let me say,
veteran.
Let's listen.
To the thousands of Americans who traveled from distant towns and across state lines to be here today, this is your national capital. Welcome to Washington, D.C. We are thrilled to have you. This evening, as we celebrate the 250th anniversary of the United States Army, the oldest branch of the greatest fighting force ever known to man, I want to say to all the soldiers all across our nation's capital and all across the world, happy birthday, soldiers. We're proud of you. And I want to say you represent an unbroken line of greatness, of excellence. And one of the things the President of the United States has told his entire administration, from the Vice President on down, is that we must remember that the young men and women who put on the uniform and serve this nation are our most precious resource. We must honor them, we must respect them, we must fight for them, and that's exactly what the Trump administration aims to do every single day. And so to our soldiers We're so proud of you, and let me tell you that the way that we honor and respect you is, number one, we never ask you to go to war unless you absolutely have to, and number two, when we do ask you to go to war, we give you the weapons and the support needed to kick the hell out of the enemy and come back home safely. Now, I know I am the last thing standing between the main event, and that is a dangerous place to be with a lot of soldiers in the audience. So let me just say a couple of quick additional thoughts. First of all, June the 14th is, of course, the birthday of the Army. It is, of course, the birthday of the President of the United States, and happy birthday, Mr. President. But I would get in trouble if I didn't mention that it's also my wedding anniversary. And so to my lovely wife, I love you, honey. Happy anniversary. And thank you for everything that you do for our country. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce the 45th and 47th Commander-in-Chief of the United States military, President Donald J. Trump.
Thank you to Vice President Vance, and thank you to our wonderful First Lady, and above all, thank you to the greatest, fiercest, and bravest fighting force ever to stride the face of this earth, the United States Army. Thank you very much. Because the Army keeps us free, you make us strong, and tonight you have made all Americans very proud. They're watching from all over the world, actually. Made them all very proud. Every other country celebrates their victories. It's about time America did too. That's what we're doing tonight. And watching this magnificent display, our souls are filled with gratitude for every generation of warriors who have worn the uniform all the way back to the very beginning. So to every veteran across our land and right here in our nation's capital, including 6 recipients of the Congressional Medal of Honor, we love you, we honor you, and we salute your noble service to our flag and to our country. As we celebrate tonight, we also think of the hundreds of thousands of Army soldiers who have made the supreme sacrifice for our nation and selflessly laid down their lives in every war, from the Revolution to the War on Terror. To the Gold Star families with us today, the courage of your heroes is the bedrock on which our entire nation stands. We thank you. Yes, we thank you. Today we commemorate an event that did not just change American history, but changed the history of the entire world. With the creation of America's Army on June 14th, 1775, liberty got its shield and the freedom got its sword. Those first Army patriots in the American Revolution fought against a fearsome enemy and impossible odds, but they were armed with a righteous cause. They were led by an indomitable commander, a truly great man, General George Washington, and they were united by an eternal creed. Their motto was victory or death. Over the past 2.5 centuries, our warriors have shown unrivaled valor on fields of battle around the globe. With the frostbitten feet and bloody fist, they have marched into the flames and fury of combat, charged up mountains, stormed beaches, waded through torrents of gunfire, and leapt into skies thick with smoke and shrapnel. The U.S. Army has driven bayonets into the heart of sinister empires, crushed the ambitions of evil tyrants. Beneath the threads of American tanks, it's done so well, it's done so much, and sent the devil himself flying into full retreat. Time and again, America's enemies have learned that if you threaten the American people, our soldiers are coming for you. Your defeat will be certain, your demise will be final, and your downfall will be total and complete. Because our soldiers never give up, never surrender, and never, ever quit. They fight, 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 and they win, win, win. And that's why no institution in history has entered more names into the roster of American heroes than the U.S. Army, the Congressional Medal of Honor, more than anyone or anything. There was Mad Anthony Wayne, asked by George Washington to lead a daring midnight raid up the cliffs of Stony Point with unloaded muskets and only their bayonets to fight the redcoats. Mad Anthony replied, "Issue the order, sir, and I will storm into hell for you." Then there was the Civil War general, John Corse, shot in the face in combat. He fired off a message to his commander: "I am short a cheekbone and one ear, but I am able to whip the hell out of all of them." He stayed on the front lines, it seemed forever. In World War II, there was the great Creighton Abrams, besieged on all sides by the Nazis at the Battle of the Bulge. He boldly proclaimed, "They've got us surrounded again, the poor bastards." This is the fighting spirit and unyielding force of the U.S. Army. It has never changed, and it will never, ever change, because there is no earthly force more powerful than the brave heart of a U.S. infantryman or an Army Ranger, paratrooper, or Green Beret. They are the best. They are the finest. From Bunker Hill to San Juan Hill, from Gettysburg to Guadalcanal, from Yorktown to Shiloh, and from the trenches of the Argonne to the mountains of Afghanistan, the Army has forged a legacy of unmatched courage, untold sacrifice, and unequaled and undying glory. Our soldiers have poured out their blood by the bucketful on Missionary Ridge and Heartbreak Ridge, on the sands of Sicily, Normandy, and the Philippines, and on the dusty streets of Da Nang, Baghdad, and Fallujah. Thanks to their extraordinary service and devotion, 250 years later, America stands tall, America stands proud, and America stands free. We're the hottest country in the world right now, and our country will soon be greater and stronger than ever before. Down through history, we've been blessed beyond words by this valiant legion of Army warriors and patriots, heroes and legends. And tonight we affirm with unwavering certainty that in the years ahead and in every generation hence, whenever duty calls and whatever danger comes, the American soldier will be there. No matter the risk, no matter the obstacles, our warriors will charge into battle. They will plunge into the crucible of fire, and they will seize the crown of victory, because the United States of America will always have the grace of Almighty God and the iron will of the United States Army. Congratulations to everybody. We love our country. We've never done better. Thank you. God bless you. God bless the Army, and God bless America. And now I'd like to ask our great First Lady to join me at the podium. Thank you very much, everybody.
President Trump there, along with First Lady Melania Trump, the Commander-in-Chief, speaking to the United States Army on its 250th anniversary, and the President talking about the greatest, fiercest, bravest fighting force in the world, as we see a soldier coming out with an American flag. Now, we believe this is a flag that, let's listen.
Of the United States Army, the Army Golden Knights, I would like to present to you this flag, which was flown over our nation's capital in free fall during the Army's 250th birthday celebration.
That is a tradition here in Washington when a flag is presented in that trifold like that. Notably, the president's speech really did stick to the themes of Army service. It was not a political speech. The only line that we're the hottest country in the world. He uses that in campaign speeches, but really throughout his remarks, he talked about the service, sacrifice, and the gratitude of the nation for generations of Army soldiers and their families.
Talking about veterans who served, talking about Gold Star families who sacrificed, and so many of the soldiers who laid down their lives in defense of this country and countries around the world, for that matter, obviously serving through world wars in Vietnam, Korea, the global war on terror as well. Another musical
Now, this
performance.
is Lee Greenwood, of course, who is a regular staple of the president's campaign life, but this song, of course, may transcend that. God bless the USA.
Thank my lucky stars to be living here today, because our flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, to me, and I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. Happy birthday, Mr. President. Of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, from sea to shining sea, Detroit to Houston, and New York to LA. There's pride in every American heart, and it's time we stand and say, there ain't no doubt I love this land.
And that song goes back to 1984. You may associate it very much with the Trump era, but God Bless the USA was a hit when Ronald Reagan was president. It was a hit during the first Gulf War and has become more and more associated with President Trump during his time. But you could see how the crowd was enjoying it as well.
Obviously, before the Trump era, that was a song that was firmly planted in the Americana
very much
of our country. And so an opportunity to hear that as we've been listening to so much great music, obviously, over the last several hours here. We've heard from many bands that are a part of the United States Army. It's dozens and dozens of bands that are a part of the Army, able to bring music to the crowd there along the parade route. Again, here in celebration, really a celebratory tone to what we saw today from so many of our service members in the Army.
It's been a family experience. It's been a gee whiz wow moment to see in the sky as well as along the parade route really some extraordinary equipment that American taxpayers support and service members, in this case soldiers, put into use in their training and when called to in battle, and a chance to see the future as well as a kind of a walk through history, but a chance to see where is the Army going with the future generations, and seeing re-enlistment and swearing of the oath. It really encompassed a long journey of service and patriotism.
Which is what they set out to do. I mean,
It is.
250 years, they wanted to make sure they were able to tell the story of the Army from 1775 before this nation was founded up until today and into the future as well. Joining us now is Daniel Davis. He is a senior fellow and military expert at Defense Priorities and host of the Daniel Davis Deep Dive. He's retired from the Army as a lieutenant colonel after 21 years. He served in combat zones 4 times, including in Iraq and Afghanistan. We appreciate you making some time to be here with us tonight as we start to wind down this celebration, at least today, on the National Mall. Is this what you expected? Are you pleased with what you've seen today? How are you feeling?
You know, I think just on the first of all, I know a lot of people were concerned that the president might try to mix too much politics in with this, and I thought it was great that he just kept the focus right there on the Army. You know, this is 250 years. I like the fact that he kept it on there, and it was, you know, respectful and honoring of the people. And I also like really the parade through history that you talked about there, with all the stuff from the, you know, all the way from Revolutionary War to World War II, all the way through, you know, even some of my Desert Storm periods and Iraq and Afghanistan. So it was a bit of a trip down history lane for me. So, yeah, I thought it was pretty good.
We have talked a bit about the future here, and obviously that is something that is a part of the presentation we saw here in Washington today. As you think about what's to come for the U.S. Army that you served in for so many years, what are your expectations? What do you think the American people need to be thinking about and looking forward to?
Yeah, I tell you what, I am sharply focused on that. I've been paying a great deal of attention every day to this, the war going on in Russia and Ukraine, and now the war going on in the Middle East and all the different battlefields there. And there is the evolution of warfare is going on at rocket speed right now. And I'm really hopeful that our leaders are recognizing the tremendous changes, especially how drone warfare, not just the presence of them, but how they change all of the way the whole thing is fought. Tanks are still going to be important, but now then they're very much changed. Armor personnel carrier, infantry, everything is important, but all of the balance has changed, and the side that doesn't get that right can be really in trouble in the next battle, and we need to make sure we get that stuff right.
And as the day is sort of slipping into an early evening, we're standing by when we expect to see fireworks at some point. And as we wait for that, which will fill the sky and certainly be a highlight for many who are gathered there, do you get a sense that having a celebration on this scale, with its costs, with its logistical challenges, is something that has an impact on how people view our Army and those who serve today?
You know, honestly, it's a great spectacle. I love fireworks. I'm in the Washington, D.C. area. I probably would have been there if it wouldn't been for being here. But I don't know that we need that, because I tell you that the service members primarily don't care about spectacle. They care about, professionalism, doing a good job, and defending our country, and they don't need a lot of accolades. And so I think that it doesn't make any difference one way or the other to what we do. It's just nice periodically to be recognized, though, I suppose.
And that's such an important part of what we had been talking about, because there were periods in our Army's history, in our military's history, where our service members were not recognized. And we've talked about the Vietnam era and those soldiers not having an opportunity to stand up in front of the American people after fighting in a war, in a conflict overseas. And that is something that I think... Obviously, we think about Desert Storm, where it seemed that was an opportunity to try to rectify that with the much smaller parade compared to this that we saw back in 91. Colonel, I would assume you were around here in the D.C. area for that moment after Desert Storm.
I was actually still in Saudi Arabia when that took place, but I certainly remember it.
And I would imagine still that was like this today. There are some who feel as though it's deserved and it's useful in some way. I would imagine that even as you were overseas, you would sort of see it in that same way, that our service members find some utility in having experiences like this.
Oh, we certainly did, and there was still a lot of Vietnam veterans that were serving at the time of that Desert Storm, and it was very gratifying for them to see, and they talked about it was almost like exorcising demons, because they had been so demonized before that, and then now they see that the soldiers are being honored and respected, and that's great. That's certainly wonderful. I just, sometimes you got to be careful that you don't get too much glorification, because then you get a little bit too puffed up, but sometimes I think it's good to have.
And if there's a moment of patriotism, it's when you look toward the sky and you see the rocket's red glare of fireworks, and this is sort of the spectacle of the night.
It is. Colonel Davis, we appreciate your time with us tonight as we watch this. I mean, they know how to do fireworks here in the nation's capital against the backdrop of the American flags that encircle the Washington Monument here along the National Mall.
And if you notice that it is not fully darkness, that is because they have hurried them up in anticipation of the thunderstorms tonight and the rain. And there was such concern about having to postpone or cancel that seeing them with perhaps dusk in the background more than a night sky.
And I think I hear the Army song being sung here. Let's listen.
When I raised my right hand, I swore an oath to every generation before me. I wear the same branch insignia as the soldiers who crossed the Delaware. Before there was a nation, there was an army.
All right, another video presentation here, which really is the conclusion of the evening here, which has been an interesting one, a spectacular one in many ways in terms of the sights and sounds that we've seen here in the nation's capital on the Army's 250th birthday, but also obviously one that has been against the backdrop of some political controversy, and so many other things that we've been watching in the news world over the last several days and weeks in particular. But certainly, as the fireworks continue over the Potomac River, a celebratory tone for folks who've gathered here.
Our capital city couldn't be more beautiful than when you have this kind of celebration, and fireworks are certainly just a lot of fun, as well as a real wonderful cap to what has been a hard to pull together high-level event where you have had 7,000 soldiers, people who have been visiting from around the country to attend, all of the effort that's gone into it, and that solemn purpose that it's 250 years for the Army and next year for the nation, something the president has long wanted, happens to be his birthday as well, and he did largely stick to the message of focus on the Army today, which is what this day was supposed to be about.
Absolutely. It is also Flag Day, worth noting here. The Navy and the Marine Corps will celebrate their 250th birthdays later on this year. And then, of course, next year, as we're in this time period, this year of celebration leading up to July 4th, Independence Day 2026, when our nation will celebrate its independence for 250 years. With, I would imagine, a similarly grand extravaganza here in the nation's capital along the National Mall, where Americans again will be invited to Washington to celebrate Independence Day.
And maybe in these divided times, this is the kind of moment where people are reminded about the service and the sacrifice and the values of the country that bring us together, having more in common than we do disagree about.
I agree. It's something you can't argue, to have men and women stand up and swear an oath, volunteer to defend, to fight for. That is something that is special. We had General Twitty on a little bit earlier talking about the percentage of the American population that makes this sacrifice, that wears the uniform, being such a small percentage. I think he said something
just
like 1%. And so these are special people who choose to do this work in our Army and in all of our branches of the military. And these salutes are always
spectacular.
Really.
From the Ellipse, which is a park-like area just beyond the White House, that glow of the White House in the background, the Washington Monument. I'm proud of our city tonight. It's a beautiful, beautiful place.
And it would appear that this is the way you end a birthday celebration, with a 21-gun salute, potentially.
A little smoke in the air from the fireworks.
And a salute.
And we've been hearing these testimonials from members of the Army who have talked about their own experiences as well.
And I can tell you, there were several video montages, packages prepared for this evening. And it looks like the ones that maybe they didn't get to earlier, they're going to make sure they get to before we wrap up here tonight in Washington for folks who are still in the crowd. Or perhaps these video montages are timed to the fireworks.
They reloaded on the fireworks. I thought we'd seen the finale, but we can enjoy it some more. It is beautiful.
The chests are out, the arms are swinging, and cadence counts.
For folks who don't get an opportunity to visit the nation's capital, Kelly, you've lived here for a long time. I lived here for a long time as well. We know the Washington Monument. In the shot we just saw a second ago, you may not be familiar with that little building that was toward the bottom of the screen, the Jefferson Memorial. And there are these memorials and monuments really all around the city, but in particular along the National Mall, that celebrate different points in the American story.
And the Tidal Basin, and they are especially beautiful at night when they are lit. Obviously an extra glow with the fireworks tonight, which will be seen in Virginia and in Maryland, and people will be on rooftops all around the city enjoying this. There'll be amateur photographers out here trying to capture that winning Instagram moment by having a terrific shot of these fireworks. Getting ready for the 4th of July, we get an extra taste of it, celebrating this Army birthday today.
We're in this window of moments when communities are celebrating different federal holidays. Obviously, we just had Memorial Day. Now, here on Flag Day, we're celebrating the Army's birthday. Next week, we'll mark Juneteenth here, a new federal holiday in this country. marking the end of slavery when enslaved people in Texas received word about the Emancipation Proclamation having been signed by Abraham Lincoln. That will be followed, of course, by the 4th of July, Independence Day, which we will all, again, gather to celebrate, as Kelly said, with likely fireworks shows around the country. Not just here in Washington, but certainly an incredible spectacle will be here in Washington as well.
And tomorrow the president heads to Canada for the Group of Seven Nations Summit at a time when the world is fragile with concerns about Iran and certainly what's happened in Israel and Ukraine and Russia, so many topics. And he'll take whatever energy he gets from this onto the global stage for an important set of meetings. After this was really his vision, he pushed it. It was obviously supported in a bipartisan separate entity that created America 250. But this was in many ways something the president had said needed to be done, and many people took part today.
I wonder if we still have any of our guests with us that have been helping to guide us through the conversation here tonight. And I'll ask our control room to let me know here as we continue to watch the fireworks. We were able to talk to historian Douglas Brinkley earlier, who really helped us to put into perspective, to give us some context on the Army's story across the years, from the American Revolution in the 1700s through to the Civil War, into World Wars I and II, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, the Gulf War, and the global war on terrorism, talking about the way that the Army has stood up, as the way that it has risen to the occasion in each of those instances with the tools that were available. You know, we think about the times when you had soldiers that marched from New York to Virginia with George Washington during the closing days of the American Revolution, horses that rode into battle.
Who more than self their country loved, and mercy more than love.
And I will always do my duty, no matter what the price. Hey, I've counted up the cost, I know the sacrifice. Oh, and I don't want to die for you, but if diet's asking me, I'll bear that cross with honor. Hey, freedom don't come free. I'm an American soldier, an American. Beside my brothers and my sisters,
was a humbling experience putting on this uniform.
I believe this uniform is a symbol of trust, and it represents the highest ideals of our country.
As we start to wrap up our live coverage here in the nation's capital, I want to turn to Vaughn Hilliard one more time. He is on the National Mall, was able to observe the parade, the celebration as it was happening right behind him. Vaughn, your closing thoughts on what we've seen tonight here in the nation's capital.
The split screen of what we have watched here over the last 3 hours, the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief of the U.S. Army, and this standing alongside his Vice President and his Defense Secretary, not only facing their serious questions about how they are going to respond to Iranian airstrikes overseas, but we watched thousands of U.S. Army personnel, veterans, but those also in active service, National Guard and Army Reserves, here in the nation's capital, marching down these streets at the same time that on the other coast in Los Angeles, there are thousands of active Army National Guard that have been deployed, facing off with protesters at the direction of the President of the United States. And so while we watch this display, and we've talked to military veterans from Vietnam to Operation Enduring Freedom, this is also a moment of reckoning for how this administration over the next 3.5 years will lead those currently serving the United States. Tens of thousands, many probably watching this own broadcast tonight, overseas and in the Middle East, are also waiting for bated breath on what the direction is that is going to be coming from this podium. And so as you heard the President pay homage to the 25,000 patriots that lost their lives to bring us the United States of America during the Revolutionary War, and the millions that lost their lives during World War II. This is a moment for this President of the United States as Commander-in-Chief, where there is acknowledgement about the 250 years that has been, but also really stark split screens overseas and here on our domestic streets of the United States, all that are at the hands of him and the U.S. military personnel which he oversees.
All right, Vaughn Hilliard for us on the National Mall. Vaughn, thank you. We had Ellison Barber out there as well for us throughout the day today, covering these events, Kelly, as we really wrap up with, we've talked about the fireworks and the spectacle that is, the way that people are engaged in watching that, and you combine that with the Army Band and the choir there singing the Army song, in addition to these uniquely American sounds, tunes that we know so well.
Very much. Hearing God Bless America, it certainly stirs everyone's heart. Watching the fireworks that have, frankly, outlasted any normal fireworks, I'm very impressed. I keep thinking it's the finality, and it has not yet reached that point. A spectacular show, and the emotions of this day and the patriotic strings that have been pulled for the reasons of honoring service and sacrifice and looking to the next generations. And there is something very stirring about the rituals and the celebrations of American strength and patriotism. As we've said, at a time of divided politics, there are things that do bring the country together.
And there were these concerns about the mixing of the celebration of the Army and the men and women of the Army and the political overtones that Vaughn noted there by way of what we've heard from the President and other members of his administration about this event. And there were concerns about whether this could be pulled off in a way that didn't have wildly political tones to it. And perhaps that's left for someone else to ultimately decide, but the effort here is clear.
And all of those real-world political realities are still out there, but during the hours we've spent watching this spectacle and show and parade, they have stayed close to the purpose and the measure of what they wanted to say, which is to tell the story of the Army over 250 years, acknowledge the service and the sacrifice, and connect the public to the soldiers who serve. And I believe that actually was the finale of the fireworks. What a spectacular show.
Just heard someone over the loudspeaker say thank you. So that typically indicates...
That's our cue as well, Aaron. It's been a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you. It's been great to sit alongside you for these several hours. And
we had a very good seat for all
We did. We got to see so much of what the United States Army is about, has been about over the course of the last 250 years. And to bring that to our viewers across the country who are watching here on NBC News.
And you
now.
feel the pride in your family, I feel it in mine, and it's nice to share that about those who have served that we care about, and it's been a great celebration.
It absolutely has been. And that, of course, wraps up our coverage, our special coverage of the Army's 250th anniversary parade. I'm Aaron Gilchrist here in Washington alongside Kelly O'Donnell. Thank you for spending some time with us this evening. We're going to wrap up here and leave you with just a couple of images from the National Mall.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.